What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to a Thursday morning show, gang. Took me a half a second there. Coffee hasn't quite kicked in yet. Hopefully yours has. Hopefully your mornings have gone well so far, going about your day. Appreciate everybody who's hanging out in the chat, waiting for the show to start. Cheers, gang. A little coffee. 9 games on deck to talk about. 1:15 start time? 1 o'clock, call it. Handful of day games. Kicking things off, we have a Pirates-Mets game at 1:15. And then there's a little gap till the 2 o'clock games. We go through the 4 o'clock games this afternoon. So it should be stacked few hours of baseball during the day today. Lot to talk about. Deep pitching slate. One of those typical second day of the season. First day, really. Opening day, part 2. But tons of aces available up and down the slate. A lot to get through. Lower totals, as usual, but we've got some teams cracking into the mid-4s already. So not bad for a March game. But a lot to work with. Not Rex 420s here. Not Rex saying, and the beautiful and handsome Terry to lead us day in, day out. I'm on some 300 milligram caffeine pre-workout deep in the Excel sheets. Taking a break to go work out before you go live at 10. Love it. People are popping in here to say hi in between their coffee and their workout while I'm sitting here putting spreadsheets together. I love it. Lone Wolf's here. Andy's here. Andy's also in his cups of coffee and his Excel sheets. Good stuff. All right, in the interest of not wasting too much time, I'm just trying to let some people collect in, but we'll collect more up as we go, I'm sure. 9 games on deck, so I don't want to spend too much time jibber-jabbering at the top here because you know how we take our time. We did 45 minutes on one game yesterday. We'll do a little bit better pace than that, but a lot to get through, so let's dive on in. What do you say? So like I was getting at, very good-looking slate. You can see, though, a couple of mid-4s totals. We got 4-6 on the Brewers, which is an interesting spot. They're pulling a nice total there, but kind of like last year what we saw with that team a lot. They're not really absolutely destroying the fantasy projections. A lot of good, not great. So they don't exactly aggregate to the top of the stacks board if you're looking at it. But an interesting spot for them going up against one of the lower-end pitchers of the day. That's your highest run implied total. But you got a handful of mid-4s. You got a 4.44 on the Red Sox, 4.58, 4.59 call it on the Astros. Another 4.4 on the Phillies later on in the day. So a decent amount to work with. Not so much in that first game. The Pirates against the Mets, just a 7-run total. Relatively even up. It's Paul Skeens against Freddie Peralta. Pretty good pitching matchup on that one. That Brewers-White Sox game is Shane Smith on the bump for the White Sox. They're going up against Jacob Misiorowski, so that's got the White Sox end of that implied total down pretty far, under 3.5 runs. We've got Cubs starter who's escaping me, Matthew Boyd. Had to check already. Matthew Boyd against Kate Cavalli in that Nationals Cubs game. You can see a really, really low sub-3 total for the Nationals. To me, that's reflecting a little bit more March game in Wrigley. It's a cool day in Chicago. Some weather in the area. It seems more cloudy, overcast, like a 30% chance of rain. But sub-3 total, Matthew Boyd was good last year, but that's generous. Cubbies pulling a 4.21 on the other side of that. Looked pretty good going up against Cavalli. One of the better targets of the day, in my opinion. The Twins and the O's, just a 3.76 implied total on the Twins side of that. They're going up against Trevor Rogers, who was far better in the ERA and the surface numbers last season than what his actual pitching was for his year, but was very, very good when he pitched last season. So got to give him a little bit of credit for that, but we'll definitely take a look in that spot. Orioles 4.32 implied total up against Joe Ryan. One of the better totals of the day, pulling the big home run marks. Ryan, not terrible as far as giving up home runs, but definitely an ace caliber pitcher who does give up some power. So we're seeing a lot of upside for the Orioles. Maybe they get through as a little bit of a power team. You've got the Tyler O'Neill opening day home run narrative going on that one, of course. I had every justification in the world for picking him by the numbers today, but I didn't just because of that stupid narrative. I did not pick him. But you'll see where the numbers are. Red Sox and the Reds. It's Garrett Crochet against Andrew Abbott. Couple dueling lefties there. Garrett Crochet, pretty tremendous. Checking the Reds down to a 365 implied total. His Red Sox pulling a mid-fours number against Abbott definitely seems realistic. Another team, pretty decent stack today. Would you chill? Nobody wants to hear you bark through the whole show like yesterday. Angels against the Astros. Jose Soriano against Hunter Brown. Another spot. I really like Jose Soriano's prospects to have an upside year. He's excellent at keeping the ball down, keeping the ball in the yard. He's got a lot of zip on the fastball. He's just got all the pieces to be a better starter than he is. We talked about him a lot. We hit him right a few times last season, but not necessarily all the time. I think we get a more consistent, higher upside Jose Soriano this season, but you can't really ignore that 4-6 total, some of those bats in that Houston lineup either. But if a team surprised us, underwhelming, maybe missing their target number there, would have the Astros fairly high up that list given the starter and just his ability to induce ground balls, keep the ball down. Tigers, Padres, 377 implied total on the Detroit side. They're going up against Nick Pivetta, serviceable starter, but he is no Tarek Skubal, who's on the mound for Detroit. Best pitcher in the game, second best pitcher in the game, third best pitcher in the game, all available on this slate. And a handful of guys who are in the running for a couple titles just behind those. So we got a lot of pitching to work with, but Skubal's the class of the industry. Skubal's at the top of the projections board today by a handful of points. 331 implied total on the Padres side there. He looks like a definite piece that you want to get to. Nathan Eovaldi going for Texas, going up against Philly. Philly's pulling plenty of power upside against Eovaldi. He was spectacular last season. Made 22 starts, I want to say, through the season, but obviously missed some time in there. Tremendous talent on the mound, getting toward the back end of the career. Phil's a little bit, I think, unexpected to be in the 4.45 range. I was thinking maybe a lower fours number. But that ballpark helps, hitting environment, and that is just a killer lineup for upside for power. So liking the looks of the Phillies a little bit. Surprised to be. Christopher Sanchez on the mound for Philadelphia. Definitely interesting against that Rangers lineup. 364 implied total for Texas. And then we round things out with the Rays at 421. Kind of surprising number for the Rays. They're going up against St. Louis in St. Louis. The Cards check down under 4 runs on their end. They're going up against Drew Rasmussen. And the Rays are going up against Matthew Liberator, who over the years has given up runs. Not a big-time upside pitcher, but he's the top of the board for the Cardinals in this rebuilding year, this ugly, well, not ugly, but this throw it to the kids and see what they can do kind of a year that the Cards are having. Second season in a row. Liberator's coming off of a great spring. He's got talent. He's got upside. Maybe this is the year he puts some of it together. I think that total's a little bit high given what that Rays lineup looks like, but I also love Junior Caminero in the middle of that lineup for his power upside. There's a lot to talk about there. Someone's got to take a look at these Yankees bats, something about the shape of them. We're going to get into bat shape again. You're going to make poor Yahoo put a second icon next to the guys who use torpedo bats. Maybe we get Judge one of those differently shaped bats. 0 for 5 last night. 4 strikeouts, I want to say. Ugly game for Aaron Judge. Everybody else came through, though. Great start for the Yanks, obviously. Max Fried pitching into, 6 1/3. A lot of depth. I told you when we talked that through, I said maybe he gets into the 6th because of that efficiency, that ability to induce ground balls, get out of innings quick. And he was efficient. He was tight. Got into the 7th. Yanks chased who the hell started for Logan Webb, one of the best starters in the league. Yanks really got to Logan Webb. A lot of that wasn't his fault, but a chunk of it obviously was, and just cost him in all the wrong spots. He'll spend the rest of the year chiseling that ERA back down. But anyway, let's dive in. Let's get some game by game going. Antonio's here. Let's get it. Love it. House, good to see you. She loves Michi. What's going on? Glorious day for baseball. I got that right. Lone Wolf likes the mid-range pitching. Always an argument to be made for looking for some mid-range, getting a little bit cheap. Here's your pitching board. So again, right, as we zero in on the pitching board, you can just kind of see the aces in the prices. Kind of a straightforward top of the board there. Skubal, Crochet, Skeens, Christopher Sanchez. I think that's the order that those guys came off the board in a lot of fantasy drafts, although Skeens typically went ahead of Crochet. But that is like your top 4 in general. Hunter Brown, Peralta. This is a very good board. You get into a little bit more danger here with Ryan. Again, I mentioned the power. But anybody I would say out of those 4, very obviously super strong choice. Love Sanchez at a little bit of a discount to the other three. If you can afford any one of those three guys, absolutely fire away. Between these three, Skeen's probably in the most difficult spot going up against that very talented Mets lineup. Slightly underprojected compared to Skubal and Crochet. We're talking about tenths, hundredths of a point. But there's a lot of upside for Sanchez there. That is not a great Texas lineup. Hunter Brown going up against LA. You've got Mike Trout in that lineup pulling a little bit of a power number that we'll look at, but there's definitely Ks there for Hunter Brown. I don't dislike that spot. 10-2 on the FanDuel side. Forgot which was which. Still knocking the dirt out of the spikes. So a little bit high priced by comparison to some of the other guys that I consider around him. I consider Hunter Brown, again, very, very talented. But I think we're still dealing with more similarity with Freddie, with Joe Ryan, with Nick Pivetta, with Evaldi, certainly, than we are truly with Skeens, Crochet, Skubal. So it's a little bit high, in my opinion, on the FanDuel slate. And then you can see Evaldi a few spots further down at 10,000 on FanDuel. Kind of a big investment for where he's projecting against that excellent Phillies lineup. 8,300 on DraftKings, totally different story. That is a very fair price for Evaldi there. Pavetta's flashing some power upside in Detroit's direction, but he's a very good starter, 88, 82. I can see him getting through an effective start right there. Basically, everybody is in the 4.5 to 5.5. Excuse me. I say half because I just kind of cheat the model sometimes instead of using thirds. So it's 4.5 to 5.5, but consider it 1 or 2 outs in either direction. As far as where I'm letting some of these guys get to. A few of these guys pitched in the WBC. A few of these guys are a little bit more stretched out than others, but we're working in a generally lighter expectation than we will be a few weeks into the season as far as everybody's just, the bulk way I'm projecting the innings right now. So just know that. Mizorowski looks fantastic against the White Sox. That is a very low-end White Sox lineup, although I think it's probably a little bit better than last year. The emergence of Colson Montgomery, the addition of Munetaka Murakami, getting Lou Bob out of town, and just a change of environment on both ends of that equation, probably for the best. Chase Meadroth, good hit tool up at the top of that lineup. So they might be a little frisky, but Mizorowski's very good. So that's an interesting spot, especially that 75 on DraftKings. That is pretty damn cheap for Mrs. Talents against that White Sox team. I mentioned Soriano. At 62, I kind of like that. If you're getting cheap on DraftKings, again, I know that the Astros have a lot of talent in the lineup. I know that the Astros are pulling a good mid-fours total, one of the better marks on the board. But Soriano's got a little something, and 62 is very cheap to go get him as an SP2. You go double spend down, which you can do. I wouldn't call you nuts for going with, if you're building a handful of lineups, have a Soriano and Liberatore lineup, get really cheap, load up on premium bats. I don't think that's nuts. Again, both those guys' Vegas totals working against them a little bit. But we've got some very good pitching for half the price or close to half the price of some of the guys at the top of the board. Abbott, I don't really want to mess with. Trevor Rogers, I don't really have a lot of faith in, especially not at 94 FanDuel. A little bit better, 81 on DraftKings. But I think with all the depth we've got in play, we don't need to go to the Trevor Rogers spot. And then Shane Smith, Kate Cavalli, I'm really skeptical. I don't think we need to touch those spots. Greg Biancone, what's going on, man? Good to see you too. Ducking, good to see you. Aaron Jones asks how far they let Rasmussen go today. Last spring start, it looks like he got out to 5 2/3, went 4 innings to start before that. So I've got him in. Again, every single pitcher in here is call it 4 1/3 to 5 2/3 if we're thinking in actual baseball numbers. So somewhere in that range is where I have him projected. I do have him on the lower side of that, though. I brought him down under 5 innings. But I think a 4+ expectation and with a reasonable enough shot to get to 5, be able to book the win and so on and so forth is perfectly fine. 5 innings from any of these guys would not be surprising at this point. Getting beyond 5, you see, the complete game shutout, very unlikely today. Anybody pitching into the 7th definite bonus upside there. But you could see some of these guys cruise into the 7th inning just on talent and, blazing a trail through these lineups. So I don't want to rule it out. But Rasmussen one of the lower end as far as depth of start today. Back over this way. Start talking games. No new lineups have come in. We have 3. We have the Pirates and the Mets for this first game. Good boy. Lay down. Nobody wants to hear from you. Pirates and the Mets lineups are both in. We got the White Sox up on in this next game. So let's dive in. Hit the like button, by the way. Subscribe to the channel. I haven't mentioned any of that stuff. The website's rotoscouts.com for anybody who doesn't know it. Scrolling across the bottom of your screen there, you'll see promo code OD26. Runs through April 1st. Gets you a $4 first week on a weekly, $15 first month on a monthly. Pretty significant discount from the already inexpensive under $1 a day. And that does include NBA DFS and NHL DFS projections. Those are still running hot and heavy alongside the all the baseball content that comes out. Anything that hits that website, you get for that same entrance fee. O'Neal Cruz, top of the board for the Pittsburgh Pirates. 349 implied total, not an impressive mark for Pittsburgh. This is another team that subtle improvements to the lineup year over year. You can't say they didn't do anything this season to back up Paul Skeens. Tiz, is that for real? Churio fractured his hand? Like walking out of the clubhouse? No shit. There it is, yeah. Wow. Well, that's interesting. So knock the Brewers down a little bit further than what I was already saying about them. Give me 1 second. Was he hit by a pitch or something and I missed it at the end of spring? Talk about a curveball right at the start of the... Huh. All right, we'll get to that in a sec. That's a major hit to that Brewers lineup, though. That's in our second game up. Twins lineup just dropped. Austin Martin in the leadoff spot. Grab that while I'm talking here. All right, so obviously we'll take Churio off the board and we will downgrade a little bit of Brewers. But getting back to this one, so the Pirates coming in against Freddie. 3.5 implied total against a pitcher who, right in that range. Freddie last year, 2.68 ERA, but a 3.87 xFIP under the surface. Very effective, 28.2% strikeout, but a high walk pitcher. Came in with an 18.9% strikeout minus walk last season, 9.2% walk rate. Stuff plus is above average, but he allows a lot of barrels. He's a fly ball trajectory pitcher, 18-degree average launch, 9.1% barrel rate last year. So there's a lot of premium contact available there, a lot of fly ball trajectory, but not necessarily home run stuff. 2.80 home run rate last season is very, very strong. Only allowed a 34.2% hard hit rate as well. He's good at inducing weak and medium contact. But given the fly ball upside, given some of the numbers we're seeing in the Pittsburgh side, I don't hate this Pirates offense. I was about to get into it and say, you can't really say that they didn't go out there and back up Paul Skeens a little bit this year. They brought in Brandon Lau, very good second baseman with a ton of power upside from the left side. They brought in Marcell Ozuna. Guys hit 30 and 40 home runs a bunch of seasons. He had a bad year last year, big time down season, but that's a cheap upside acquisition. Comes into today fairly inexpensive too for his power upside, 3,400, 3,000 across sites. It's kind of a bargain. They brought in Ryan O'Hearn, another good lefty stick, consistent, solid hitter, gets on base, hits for average, creates runs. Not a big home run bat, but a good bat. So, that top 5 is not bad. And then Triolo's capable. Spencer Harwitz is a capable hitter who I'm kind of interested in seeing over the course of a full season. Nick Gonzalez is okay. Henry Davis, whatever. But it's not a completely inept Pirates lineup. And I kind of blew through the top guy there. O'Neal Cruz. Last season, 544 plate appearances, 200, 298, 378. Completely disappointed me. Completely let me down on my calls for a breakout season and all his ridiculous upside. Dude is just oozing with baseball talent. Came up with those numbers despite a 17.9% barrel, 56.6% hard hit rate. He still did steal 38 bags, so he's got a lot of upside for just filling fantasy stats anyway. But you want to see a better slash line. A 295 WOBA out of a player like that is just uncalled for. It's got to be better than that. 324 xWOBA. Doesn't give you a ton of reason to believe in those numbers, but I'm here calling for it again. I'm going right back to the well with O'Neal Cruz this year. I am thinking he is going to be a fantasy monster this season at the top of this lineup. Might be out alone on that island. A lot of people have given up on O'Neal Cruz finding that superstardom, that consistency. A lot of strikeouts there, 32% last year, but he did push walks up, 8.5% up to 11.8%. This is a little bit of a noteworthy uptick. Didn't help his on base. But that is a player with so much superstar talent that I can't give up on him. O'Neal Cruz, the first player off the board here in the first lineup of the day, actually is our home run pick of the day today. Going up against Freddie. So how about that? But I like this Pirates team. Yeah, I think they're a little bit better than they were. Get a little credit for some of the talent in that lineup. I think you can stack that top end fairly inexpensively with O'Neal Cruz as your focus piece. I meant to grab the stacks board. But you can see Pittsburgh right in the middle of the board here. This is the stacks board from the website. So just ranked 13th by fantasy points on FanDuel, 12th on DraftKings on a 18 team day. 10th by value, though. They pick up a little bit of value, and you can see that 7th ranked home run rating. Not terrible for some power upside against Freddie. Get a couple fly balls. You never know what happens. If I'm stacking, it's Cruz, it's Brendan Lau, and then you can work your way around some of the other pieces. Brian Reynolds, I kind of skipped over, had a really rough season last year at 245, 318, 402. Just a 315 WOBA, but did have a 338 xWOBA lurking under the surface. Slipped to 99 WRC plus last year, though. Like Brian Reynolds to have a nice bounce back season. He's still too good, still not hitting critical age downgrades or anything. But you could work around Reynolds if he's a little bit too expensive with Ozuna right there at those cheap prices. Ozuna hit 21 homers last season. The power was way, way out, 168 ISO. You can see a little bit of quality there. Right, 334 is already above average in terms of his WOBA, and he had another 20 points to go in that expected mark. Still had a 114 WRC plus despite the struggles. Just the year before, hit 39 home runs. At 247 ISO, creator runs 56% better than average. Year before that, hit 40 home runs. I don't want to write him off just yet. So I'm happy to pivot around Reynolds and get to Ozuna there. If you can get both of them into a lineup, fantastic. O'Hearn's a reasonable option given the hit tool, the ability to get on base. 20% strikeouts last year was up a little bit. 14% the season before was really, where you want him. But a lot of line drives, a lot of ability to get on. I don't love that Horwitz is first base and collides with Ryan O'Hearn there. You got to mix and match your way around that a little bit. But anybody from the bottom of the lineup, you're probably looking to get one of Triolo, Horwitz up at the top. And then if you have to, consider throwing Nick Gonzalez and Henry Davis into that mix. But ideally, if you're choosing between one of Triolo or Horwitz to round out a stack, you're doing fairly well there. On the Mets side of things, 358 implied total. They're going up against one of the best pitchers in the world, second best pitcher in the world. Paul Skeens last year, 32 starts, 29.5% strikeouts, 13.8% swinging strike rate, had a 1.97 ERA, sub-2 ERA for his young career so far. 303 xFIP, something to watch there. That xFIP is a full run and change higher than the ERA was. Sub-1 whip, just absolutely tremendous. Kept the ball in the yard, 1.5% home run rate. You can see the Stuff Plus, if you weren't here yesterday, Stuff Plus ratings across the various pitches in the arsenal, plus Stuff location and pitch plus, just to get a little bit of an idea how nasty guys are. So I'm not looking necessarily to tackle the Mets, good as this lineup is, going up against Paul Skeens. They'll be lower owned than they probably ought to be in a vacuum with these players that are on the Mets. Francisco Lindor is a star. Juan Soto is a superstar and the best pure hitter in baseball. Bo Bichette on this team now. They lost Pete Alonso. If you haven't followed along, if you haven't caught up on the massive tome of a offseason review that I put up on the website. So they lose a little bit of power upside in New York with Alonso departing, but they bring in quality. Bo Bichette going to fill in with quality in the infield. It fills multiple positions for DFS purposes. 47, a little pricey on DraftKings, 34 on FanDuel, a little bit more fair. Had a nice bounce back season last year, 311, 357, 483, a 134 WRC plus. Doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but 18 long balls last season, hits the ball squarely, fairly hard, and doesn't strike out. So a lot of well-struck balls in play in the heart of the lineup out of Bo Bichette. It makes him an interesting guy in Met stacks and an efficient part of this offense this year. Jorge Polanco's on this team now. Heart of the lineup, hitting cleanup, 3,400, 2,900, three-position eligibility on FanDuel, first and second on DraftKings. That's an ideal piece to switch around the board. Another guy, 26 home runs last season, good amount of power, solid veteran bat from both sides of the plate. You just don't want to tangle with Paul Skeens all that much today. Lou Bob is on this team now. 14 dingers for him last year, 33 stolen bases in another lost season of only 431 plate appearances. Played his way out of Chicago. All the talent in the world. That is another player that I expect to rebound nicely in New York and just have a better time of it playing baseball this year. So I like Lou Bob's upside this season. 4,000, 3,100, I think entirely appropriate. If you're going Mets, I would have him in the lineup. Brett Baty, another guy, hits the ball very squarely. 18 home runs and 432 plate appearances last year. Just a 324 wall, but 334 underneath. 111 WRC plus, very effective season. But there might be a little bit more to give there. 12.8% barrel, 46.7% hard hit. You've got my attention. Marcus Semien, finishing out the back end of the career in New York. Lost season for him last year. 233.05, 364, 89 WRC plus. A 295 WOBA, 318 xWOBA. Below average, significantly below average in the actual, but below average in the expected as well. Had a few injuries that he was dealing with through the season, but he's 35, 36 now. We're getting toward the end. We'll have definitely some interesting spots through the year. It wouldn't knock me out of my chair if he hit 22 plus home runs when it's all said and done. But the days of 30 are long gone. He's always been a guy who's gotten away with his power despite barrel rates and hard hit rates right in the mid sixes and 35%. That is maddeningly consistent across those 3 seasons. But I think the true upside is gone. And those of us who are stuck with Marcus Semien, at least for now at middle infield in our dynasty leagues, are not too happy about it. Carson Bengi made the team, 2,500, 2,400 across the board. We'll see what he's got, but a fairly high-end outfield talent. Getting a start today, very, very cheap down toward the bottom of the lineup. And then Frankie Alvarez down there. 11 home runs and 277 plate appearances, but another guy who can just knock the ball. 12.1% barrel, 54.3% hard hit. Get a little bit more consistency as far as opportunities, as far as plate appearances out of him this year. You could have a lot of upside, and at those prices, there is definitely power lurking there, if nothing else. 124 WRC plus last season in that or third of a season, too. So good player down the bottom of the lineup, but again, don't really want to tangle with Paul Skeens here. I would say Skeens, Freddie, it's Mets Pirates, but it's closer than that might. It's closer than they'll be through much of the season. They're actually right next to each other, and the Pirates are actually ranked above the Mets technically. So I'll say Pirates Mets. How about that? Do it the right way. Let's move on to the next game. John Hans is saying, thinking about the Mets against the bullpen in innings 6 through 9. How strong is the Pittsburgh bullpen? So I don't love on a 9-game slate necessarily taking that tack. You're really reducing your chances down to essentially a plate appearance per hitter that you're putting into those lineups, unless you really get them to go. But to answer your question, their primary arms in the bullpen are Dennis Santana, Gregory Soto, Isaac Matson, Mason Montgomery, and a handful of other guys. So not very good. It is definitely a targetable bullpen if you're going that way. But going that way isn't necessarily a path that I would say that, especially on a day like today, that should be walked down. But the Mets are one of the better teams to do that with if you got it. All right, so no Churio. No official lineup, but they did, our pals over at Fantasy Labs. Check out Fantasy Labs for your projected lineup needs. They did drop a new projected for us, so that's helpful. This is against Miz. So again, just major blow to the Brewers, losing Churio off the top for, if it's a fractured hand, presumably that's 6 weeks, something like that. But they still look good. 4.63. I imagine that total is going to come down a tick. It's not going to be, incredibly noteworthy, even losing a player as good as that. But that puts a damper on expectations for a team that I was already saying, their results, their run creation, maybe better than the sum of their parts, or the sum of the parts is better than the parts, however you're supposed to say that. If you look, 29 home runs out of Christian Yelich in a nice bounce back for power last season. Nobody else in this lineup outside of Churio, who's not available now, nobody else hit 20 home runs. Get a lot of steals. Get a lot of guys who are very effective at getting on base. So this team, like we said a lot through last season, better run creation engine than they maybe are a fantasy scoring team, if that makes any sense. So just something to be aware of, but a lot of very effective and mid-priced type of stackable items here. You don't have anybody over 5 on DK. 3,400 maxes you out with Christian Yelich on the FanDuel slate. So there is stackability in those Brewers. They're going up against a pitcher, 22.9% strikeout rate for Shane Smith last season. Pitched to a 3.98 ERA, a 4.36 xFIP, 4.31 SIERA. There's nothing special there. What I will say is, despite giving up a 46.2% hard hit and a 90.4 mile an hour exit velo, he was serviceable at keeping the ball in the yard. 2.85% home run rate, not problematic at all. 6.9% barrel, quite good. 13.6 degree average launch, kind of right in the middle. So not the easiest guy necessarily to homer off of, but it's not because he's got killer stuff. He's below average across the board here. He's got one pitch that is slightly above average as measured by Stuff Plus. So definitely a targetable starter if you're looking to go to these Brewers. Going back the other way, White Sox 3.46 implied total, going up against Mizurowski. Miz, 4 1/3 in his final spring start, faced 20 hitters. Give up a handful of runs. We don't really care about the results. It's more about how many hitters did he face, how many pitches did he throw, kind of a thing. Had a couple effective short outings in spring. He made 3 spring starts, 4 innings, 6 strikeouts, and 3 1/3, 6 strikeouts. But as Lou Brown famously said, against guys who are going to be bagging groceries in a couple of weeks. But this is a top-end starter. 31.9% strikeout rate last season in his 66 innings, his 14 starts. A little bit of a bump with walks. 11.4% walk rate needs to come down in the long term, but it's still, with that ultra-high strikeout rate, still equal to 20.5% strikeout minus walk rate. So he's perfectly fine. Sub 3% home run rate, pitched to a nearly 120 mark for Stuff Plus across his full arsenal. Ridiculous fastball. You can see where that grades out right over here. And then just look at this arsenal. I mean, bang, bang, bang. It's those 3 pitches. Nasty stuff, though. 4.36 ERA is a little higher than the memory might trigger, but a 3.66 xFIP, I think that's the more honest number. The 3.56 SIERA, something in that territory. So I'd say mid-3s expectation for the season, right on track, right where the White Sox are for today. So you're probably going to get a few runs scratched out, but not any major damage from their side. Like I said at the top of the show, though, that is an improved White Sox lineup. They're a little bit interesting. So if we're looking for very cheap bats to throw at a pitcher who, as much talent as he has, can put guys on base, can be a little bit vulnerable to giving up runs here and there. Not looking to target Mizurowski, but the White Sox will be, and again, they rank here on the stacks board. A lot of value showing on DK because of how cheap they are. Not terrible in the home run department because they've got some power. So if you're just looking to get cheap, if you're building 20 lineups and you want a cheap stack in a couple of them that people aren't going to be playing as much, Chicago's not terrible. Correction. Chicago is going to be terrible. They are terrible. Some of the individuals are kind of interesting. Chase Meadroth, one of those off the top. 33.25 across sites. Cheaper on FanDuel, a little bit flexible on FanDuel as well, which is interesting. Last season, 505 plate appearances. Finished the year at 253, 329, 320. No power to speak of. Hit 5 home runs, stole 14 bases. You can see it in the barrel rate, the hard hit rate over here. This is not a slugger. This is a guy with an excellent hit tool, an ability to limit strikeouts, draw walks, and get to first base. He needs to push all of those things to really fulfill his talents, but I think he's got it, and he's going to get full run in this leadoff role, hitting again ahead of a major source of power, potentially, in Colson Montgomery. Montgomery, 14.4% barrel rate over his 284 plate appearances last year, ripped 21 home runs in that small sample. Monster, 355 WOBA, slightly overperformed though. Ex-WOBA was 341, but a 129 WRC plus, instantly the best player on this team. Miguel Vargas, reasonable enough, mix and match guy, first base, third base on DraftKings, add outfield to that on the FanDuel slate for a cheap price. 16 homers over 569 last year. Wasn't interesting really, but 1 point above average in terms of run creation. You got to give him a little bit of credit for that. Low strikeout, fairly high walk last season, 17.6 against 9.8% walk. Hit the ball squarely, if not exceptionally hard. So as a 3-hitter, somebody you can just kind of drop into a stack as a cog in the machine here, perfectly fine. But if I'm just going from the top, he's also the first guy I'm skipping. Andrew Benintendi, not a hitter I like very much. Did find an 11% barrel rate and 20 home runs last season in 470 plate appearances. A little bit of an outlier for him for power last year, 190 ISO. Came away with a 103 WRC+, but you can see it in the WOBA, the ex-WOBA, right on league average. Not a special player, but he is another guy who is sub 20% strikeout last year. Draws a handful of walks. He's been sub 20% strikeout mostly throughout his career. So again, if we're looking at reasons to go to the White Sox, maybe reasons to be skeptical about what the upside of Misiorowski looks like, I would say, for one, he's a guy who probably is truly capped at 5 innings today. They want to protect that arm. 2, outside, Colson Montgomery at 29, certainly tons of strikeout there, but 3 guys in the top 4 sub 20% and significantly sub 20% strikeout last year. Maybe not the best target in the world, despite it being the White Sox. Austin Hayes, newcomer to this lineup, hit 15 home runs. Totally average player. Perfectly fine. Makes sense that he's on the White Sox now. 35 on DraftKings makes sense. 29 on FanDuel. A little bit of right-handed pop there, but certainly some strikeout as well. He'll have an adequate season, probably finish right around that 105 WRC plus mark that he put up. The interesting guy that they brought in, Munetaka Murakami, the big NPB import of this offseason, chose to play for the White Sox. And good for him. Murakami is just 26, but he played 7 seasons of NPB ball starting when he was 19. I don't remember what it totals to. It's like 240 something home runs, I believe, over those 7 seasons, peaking at 56 in 2022. 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons other than that one. So 5 total seasons above 30 home runs. Dude is a masher. And he's very good at getting on base through the NPB stats. We'll see how it translates. But by all accounts, this is a very good player, probably right out of the gate, because it's somebody basically fully formed, just entering his prime. We've seen some Japanese hitters land here and struggle. We've seen some Japanese hitters land here and become the best player in the world. So probably somewhere in between. But I'm betting the upside. The home run model likes what it sees. 9.64. He leads the team today. Really like the upside for the lefty. There's a lot of lurking power there. Get him while he's cheap, I'd say. 37 at third base on DraftKings and most notably 29 at first on FanDuel. Definitely a little discount for what the talent truly is, assuming any of it translates. Everson Pereira getting a shot here. Kind of washed out as a Yankees prospect. 138, 219, 246 last year over 73 plate appearances. Kind of an unfair sample. Hit the ball squarely, if not exceptionally hard. Edgar Quero, kind of a mix and match catcher right now, but hit the ball squarely last season. Actually, that's unfair. 268, 333, 356 is effective. Just a 307 WOBA and a concerning 290 ex-WOBA, though, and only came away with a 95 WRC+. So not exactly somebody you want to rely on, but very cheap if you do need to fill the catcher spot and you're already building White Sox into it. Sure, he's fine. And then Luis Angel Acuna, bottom of the lineup. Another member of the Acuna family, another member of that village. We talked about it a year or two ago, last year, the year before. when I was talking up Michael Garcia, so I guess it was last year. They're all from, and they talked about this during the Venezuela's run in the WBC, but that entire extended family and a bunch of people from this town, something like 60 professional ball players have come out of this small town in northern Venezuela. It's amazing. This is one of the latest ones, younger brother of Ronnie. Not the slugger that his brother is. He's fast, steals bases. He swiped 16 in 193 plate appearances last year, but didn't hit any homers. Got on base at a sub 300 clip. That's going to really need to improve. But held strikeouts under 20. 6.7% walk against that isn't overly effective, and you can see the lack of premium contact here. So you're talking about a scrappy guy that you're hoping gets on base, maybe scores you a couple runs, steals you a base, but not right now, at least a go-to option. John Hansa saying Sox still targetable, one slightly above average player that strikes out a ton. Yeah, look, again, I'm not saying don't take Jacob Misiorowski against the White Sox. I'm just making the opposite case for why you could consider it a bumpier spot than maybe it was last year, why there is a little bit more quality in that White Sox lineup. I would say there is Austin Hayes right about an average player. Colson Montgomery above average. Chase Meadroth's got the potential to be above average in terms of the hit tool. Murakami, I think, is going to be above average. And some of those guys, again, do limit strikeout through the middle there. But there will definitely be some strikeouts available. So perfectly fine going to Miz. Don't take me wrong. And he's very fairly priced. Again, that 463 implied total for the Brew Crew probably going to come down a little bit here. Bryce Turang in the projected leadoff spot in the absence of Churio. 18 homers, 24 stolen bases. Big breakout in terms of his premium contact. We talked about this through the season last year. But look at the number. Look at the leap in premium contact. 2023, 2.9, 26%. 2024, 2.4, 29. For last season, up to 7.9, which is not a tremendous number, but it's a huge leap. Basically tripled his barrel rate. 47.4% hard hit, essentially doubled the hard hit rate. And he delivered 18 home runs, tremendous slash line, had a 346 WOBA, outperformed the 335 X WOBA a little bit, but very good marks in both, 124 WRC plus. That's a category filler. You get him in the top of the lineup ahead of some of their productive bats. I don't mind Bryce Durant for those prices at second base. That is a good option at a relatively short position. There's probably more second basemen this year than third baseman overall that you really want to have, but it's still one of the overall lighter positions. William Contreras, 42-32, reasonably priced, 17 home runs last season, a 140 ISO. Something to watch there with the power, but the WOBA, the X-WOBA were perfectly aligned with one another, 113 WRC+. plus. Had a 48.5% hard hit. He lost some of the power, I suspect, around this big dip in barrel rate there. Double digits down to just 6.4%. There's your culprit. But a lot of walks, good ability to avoid the strikeout, very strong at getting on base, 355 on base last year. Again, Yelich, return to form as far as the power. Never stopped hitting the ball hard. Something we talked about year after year after year while he was putting up good, not great numbers and contributing upside games here and there. Big season last year, 29 homers, 16 steals, 121 WRC plus, 10.1% barrel, double-digit barrel for the first time in several seasons. So premium player, 4,500, 3,400. Again, another guy for the talent, that's pretty fair. He lands a little bit above basically everybody else in this game. Sal Frelick, a light hitter, but hits for average, gets on base, swipes bags, kind of fits into the team theme here. 351 on base last year, 19 stolen bases, 114 WRC plus. That's what I'm getting at with this Brewers team. Again, it's big time a collection of guys who just get on base like crazy, steal bases, wreak some havoc out there. Not the biggest collection of home run hitters. I do like the power that Andrew Vaughn's got, and I like this price at $3,000 on DraftKings and $27 on FanDuel. That's got my attention. 12% barrel, 47.7% hard hit rate last season. Used to play for the White Sox, got himself traded out of town, and went on a tear, if you remember when he first joined the Brewers. Finished the season at just 14 home runs. You can see the quality, the underlying quality right here, though. 349 xWOBA last season. The actual number, just 311. But there is a lot lurking under the surface with Andrew Vaughn. For those prices, definitely interested. Luis Rengifo, mix and match guy. Garrett Mitchell, Joey Ortiz, Jake Bowers, all mix and match quality guys. Get a little bit of multi-position out of those dudes. Only Jake Bowers, over 218 plate appearances, was above average in terms of run creation last year. Joey Ortiz, really disappointing season. Limited in terms of the batted ball events. 2 years ago was kind of interesting. Maybe had a little upside there. It's kind of gone away over the last couple seasons. Was good at limiting strikeout, putting the ball in play, but that was about it. Didn't find much success. That said, he does have a little mid-grade type pop, the ability to steal a base. So if we're just filling out a couple counting stats in fantasy, he's not dead, but he's not overly interesting outside of the very cheap price tag at the bottom of that lineup. If he moves up the board a little bit in terms of the confirmed lineup, gets a little bit more interesting. Mizurowski. Brewers bats, White Sox bats. Probably not playing Shane Smith. I don't really see much reason to get there. Arca Thels is here. What's going on, man? Missed your message there in the middle. Good to see you. Yeah, Lone Wolf, that the Churio thing's confirmed. I know that was 15 minutes ago that you asked me that question when I first started talking about that game. But yeah, that was a good pickup by whoever dropped that into the chat originally, and confirmed news. Obviously, big news to start the day. Nationals, sub-3 implied total, lowest on the board. Coming into Chicago to face the Cubs. Nats rank 15, 12 by value. A little bit of DK value is picking up there. Just a little points per dollar upside. Boyd last season, again, good, not great, but a very good season for Matthew Boyd, I think is fair to say. Came away with a 3.21 ERA and 179 and 2/3. But you can see it right out of the gate. 4.22 xFIP, 409 Sierra. Significantly higher than that sparkling little ERA that he put up. Stuff Plus does not like the arsenal. That is a below average arsenal. He's above average on 2 pitches. That's a good breaking stuff, but a very substandard fastball. This is not a very good pitcher. It's good at locating pitches. So a little control, breaking stuff. Against this lineup, no issues. Totally fine going to $7,300 Matthew Boyd, $8,200 Boyd on FanDuel is probably okay. But it wouldn't stun me if he had a game where wasn't overly useful for DFS, gave up 4 or 5 runs to the Nats. They don't destroy him, but he's not all that great, and you don't end up wanting him. I think that's totally in the cards here. I expect a return to form for Boyd, and it's not like he's lights out. 21.4% strikeout, nothing special. 15.6% K minus BB. Cubs, I was just waiting for you to say it, man. I was just here provoking you. But yeah, obviously, you get him in a fantastic spot here. You're going up against a lineup that had a 23.7% overall strikeout rate last season. You can see that includes Keibert Ruiz there at just 9.7. It includes a 16. Some of these guys in the upper 20s into the 30s, and even in the upper 30s if you're Joey Wiemer, and 61 plate appearances down the bottom. So a little bit of give and take in terms of those averages, but consider it a 23, 24% strikeout rate probably when it's all said and done. James Wood is very talented off the top. 31 home runs, 15 stolen bases last season. And a bumpy spring, if memory serves. Not that we care. Somebody asked yesterday, and my response, how do you factor in spring numbers? My response is generally it's just, nice to see. Guys that I like, let me check in, see how the spring goes. With pitchers, it's all about just getting those innings, just rounding into form. With hitters, I care a lot less. But if you do care, James Wood, 54 spring plate appearances, did hit 1 home run, struck out at a 35% clip. 125, 222, 250 slash line, a 15 WRC plus. Ouch. That's a bad spring, but is a very good ball player. 5,300, 3,600. Given that, maybe people don't go to him as aggressively in terms of being a one-off. Lefty spot for him here. Does still come away with a 10.65, 10 plus in the home run model in this column right here. If you're new, 10 plus is your magic number. That's where you're getting your good chance to hit a home run. Stands alone in this game and one of the few guys on the entire slate above 10. What's that? The 10 guys above 10. James Wood's one of them. Mike Trout, right on the nose. I was tempted to make Trouty the home run pick today. Nasim Nunez dropping in pretty cheap. Middle infield eligibility on both sites, 4 home runs, 9 stolen bases, and a handful of plate appearances last year. Mix and match kind of quality with maybe a little bit of talent filling categories. Jacob Young for cheap in the outfield, stole 15 bases, had a pretty poor slash line, just a 66 WRC plus last season. Did not put good wood on the ball either of the last 2 years. Then you get to Andres Chaparro at 2,000, dead min price, first base on DraftKings. Kind of interesting. If you're considering stacking Nationals, I think that's a big part of why, is just because how dirt cheap all these guys are outside of Wood. So averaging down, that makes Wood cheap just because you're putting them together with guys who are so effectively inexpensive. Chaparro had an 11.1% barrel last season, but a 37.8% hard hit underneath that is pretty unexceptional. Just hit 1 home run in 73 plate appearances despite that premium contact. A 254 xWOBA tells you most of the story, so that's why he's so cheap. But again, you're throwing darts already if you're going Nats. Brady House, 2,500, 2,300. Again, another guy, 274 plate appearances, call it a third of a season. Lost year, 56 WRC plus, not a lot there. Dalen Lyle, an okay option, 9 home runs, 8 steals, and 351 last year. Very good slash line. Had a 348 xWOBA, 360 WOBA last season, so overperformed a little bit, but definitely some talent there. 348, nicely above average xWOBA. I feel like CJ sliding down the lineup, assuming if he goes back up, it's a lefty on the mound, so he's probably going to hit down lineup. Gets a little bit less interesting in this spot. A lot of stolen base upside. He stole 31 last year while hitting 19 home runs. Easily the second best player on this team, 107 WRC plus. Just like him a little bit less in the same headed matchup, like him a little bit less sliding down the board for that price. You just potential for 1 fewer plate appearance, potential to be disconnected from the run engine of the team a little bit down there. Keibert Ruiz, very good at limiting strikeouts, putting bat on ball, 9.7% Ks, 3% walks last year over 267 plate appearances. Just doesn't deliver anything beyond that. He'll put the ball in play for you, but he doesn't hit home runs. He doesn't really drive the ball. 2.2% barrel on a 30.9% hard hit. There's nothing special there. And then again, Joey Wimmer, very small sample, did hit 3 home runs last season. Year before, only 28 play. Man, it's been a minute for Joey Wimmer. 13 homers, 11 steals back in 2023, but that came with a 204, 283, 362 slash line and a 75 WRC plus. Not really the guy you want. On the Cubs side, things look a little bit better. 4.21 implied total for them. They're going up against Cade Cavalli. Cavalli had a pretty good spring, but that is not really something I'm going to attach too much credit for. 14 innings, struck out 10 hitters. Gave up 0 earned runs over the 14 innings of spring work. Got out to 5 innings against the Mets in his most recent spring outing. But again, we cut off any real expectations of spring performance at the end of spring camp. So if Cade Cavalli wants that kind of respect, he's going to have to earn it going up against a pretty challenging Cubs lineup. 63, 7,000, very, very cheap. But you're talking about a guy who had an 18% strikeout rate last year. Worked to a 4.25 ERA, had a 3.90 xFIP. If you're grasping at straws, that's a straw. 4.08 Sierra, though, is probably, if you want the real number. That was over 48 2/3 in 10 starts last year. Stuff Plus likes the arsenal. Not saying he's without talent. I'm just saying we probably don't want to get overexcited about it. He's also 27.5 and really limited experience. Those 10 starts at +1 the year before in the show so far. Over 65 innings of 15 starts in AAA last season as a 26-year-old. He had a 6.09 ERA and a 4.06 xFIP. He struck out 25.1 against the 9.4% walk, so 15.7 came on his BB. That's not a good starter at 26 years old in AAA. So give me some Chicago Cubs upside. Pete Crow Armstrong signed a big extension. 5,000 on DraftKings, 3,400. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Excellent season last year, 31-35 season. Started out a lot hotter than that, though. Could have finished stronger. Ended the year with a really disappointing on-base percentage, 287 on base. Really needs to improve that. You can see some of the regularness of the player in his xWOBA and his WOBA numbers, 323, 321. 320 is league average. So not really exceptional in that department, but obviously was blasting the ball last year, 12.6% barrel, You can see right next to that over here, 41.6% hard hit, a little bit lighter than you would expect. So while this is great, all four of these numbers are fantastic. The overall slash line kind of disappointing. Tremendous ISO, but disappointing here. Good, not great WRC plus for a player that did what he did last year and probably comes into this season with the reputation that he's got. Star maker by, defensive metrics. Star maker by, a 31-35 season. But there are things you can nitpick with PCA. 24% strikeout against just 4.5% walks has a lot to do with that on base percentage. Michael Busch in the 2 spot in the projected 46-33 is cheap. 34 home runs last season. He had a tremendous year. 369 WOBA, 378 xWOBA. That's one of the top. It's a top 10 mark. I don't remember exactly where it's at. But that's one of the better bats from last year. 140 WRC plus. Honestly, not priced up aggressively for it either. Going up against a nothing pitcher. One of the better targetable pitchers on the board. Alex Bregman joins the Cubs after a up and down season in Boston. Started the year strong, got hurt. Kind of average throughout the second half there. But a guy you can still put good wood on the ball. 18 homers in 495 last season. Created runs 25% better than average. There's still Alex Bregman in there, and he's cheap at 42. That is not a bad buy. Ian Happ, player that we really like around here. 23 home runs last season. Gets on base like crazy. 342 on base last year. Had a 333 xWOBA under a 354 expected mark. A lot of barrels, a lot of hard hits out of Ian Happ. That is a very good player who can draw a walk, hit you a home run. Does a lot. 116 WRC plus. Only costs 4. Only costs 31. That's a good purchase if you're going to this Cubs team. It's a good, honestly, one-off outfielder to remember as well. No Seiya Suzuki to start the season for the Cubs. He got dinged up playing the WBC. I forget how long he's out for, but out of this lineup, noteworthy player to mention. Dansby Swanson, another guy, he just drives the ball very effectively. Always has 24 homers, 20 stolen bases in a nice little bounce back last season. 11.7% barrel, 47.7% hard hit. Struck the ball very, very well last year. So another good purchase for those prices at shortstop if you're going to this Cubs lineup. Moises Ballesteros at 31-27. A lot of upside in terms of the prospect profile. If you get him and Carson Kelly, you're obviously making some choices as far as who goes into catcher. Kelly hit 17 somewhat unexpected home runs last season in a mini breakout, 115 WRC plus. Either direction, you can play the price and ownership game with those two if you want to. And then Michael Conforto looks like not available on the DraftKings slate, at least as of last check. 2,200 on FanDuel. Total washout last year. Sub Mendoza, 486 plate appearances, 83 WRC plus. But you can see it right here. Above average xWOBA, despite all the struggles. There's still a Michael Conforto in there. So guy I would bet on a little bit as far as a light bounce back candidate for what he's going to be asked to do from the bottom of the lineup to get things going this year. Cubs bats. Matthew Boyd. Nationals bats. Cade Cavalli. Really not a lot of faith in Cavalli, guys. Yeah, John, I mentioned it up at the top. Wrigley's the one spot you want to watch a little bit as far as the weather. It's only like a 30% chance of rain. I dropped Kevin Ross' new weather board into the Discord if you guys want to take a look. But it's a 48-degree day in Chicago. The wind isn't blowing dead in, though, which is usually the one of the main things you want to look at. 17 mile an hour, kind of like that out left toward left field foul pole. So not dead to rights bad in Chicago as far as those conditions, but definitely second coldest spot on the board. And you've got days like St. Louis is 91 degrees today. So do you really want to play the game that's got half the temperature of that game? So you can play the weather a little bit. But yeah, those are the worst hitting conditions of the day. But one of the better targets to go against. So there's a lot of give and take there. People, I try not to chase the weather too much. And Wrigley's one of the worst culprits for that, I think. But there's a lot of good reasons to react to Wrigley sometimes. Yeah, that's that one. Let's move on. Game 4, it's 11 o'clock. Not terrible on time. Some of these lineups came in. The Cubbies did come in. Busch, Bregman, Ian Happ 3. Pete Armstrong slides down to the cleanup spot. This is a somewhat different lineup. Matt Shaw in at the bottom of the lineup. Let me give it to you. Hang on. I think I got the Twins already, but let me grab it in case. Yeah. And then the Cards is in. J.J. Weatherholt confirmed in that top spot for St. Louis. Name to know. All right. Real quick, not going to do it all over again, but different configuration here. Again, PCA slides down to the 4. Love ain't happen the 3 with those skills of getting on base ahead of PCA's bat. You get Nico in the 5 spot. A lot of stolen bases, ability to hit for average out of Nico. 345 on base last year, 29 steals, a 109 WRC+. That's a good player. Carson Kelly and Moises Ballesteros are in the lineup, just in a different order. Pick your poison there as far as catcher. And then Matt Shaw down the bottom, 26-23. Mix and match quality player. Did hit 13 homers, steal 17 bases. Subpar in terms of the slash line. Just a 302 xWOB under a 300 WOBA last season. So not a very good bat, but somebody who's very cheap and in the lineup today. Moving on to the Twins. They're going up against Trevor Rogers. I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm not a big believer in Trevor Rogers being able to repeat what he did over 18 starts, 109 2/3 last year. 1.81 ERA. You can see it right here. Completely betrayed by almost 2 full runs by the XFIP, by the Sierra, the real numbers under the surface to talk about what he's actually able to control. You can see it in the Stuff Plus ratings. Only the slider rates remotely above average, couple few points above average. His other primary pitches, 3 primary pitches, below average by 10 to 12 points. Location plus, very, very good. Stuff plus, pitching plus, not so much. Not a big believer, and there are bats to like in this Minnesota lineup this year. So I don't love that spot. He projects out as loosely playable, but not really for the 94 relative to the rest of the pitching board. 81 on DraftKings. Maybe you can make the argument a little bit stronger. 376 implied total on the other side. There are really not a ton of strikeouts available in this lineup either. You know, it's not a great target. You got Matt Wallner obviously at 29, and you've got Buxton at 27. Buxton, though, one of the best overall players in the world when he's on the field. So I'm not really concerned about those strikeouts, but maybe Rogers finds a couple there. He struck out 24.3% last season. Not exactly blowing hitters away, but a 12.5% swinging strike rate. He can miss bats. But where else are you picking up strikeouts? Everybody else in this lineup is below, and some significantly below 20%. Austin Martin off the top, just 34-24. Like that flexibility, outfield and second base on the FanDuel slate. I don't know how many times I'm sacrificing Luke Keeschel to get Austin Martin at second base. If I want him, I'll just plug him into the outfield, probably. But it's nice to know that I can cut that $900 if I need to at second base and just jump ahead of Buxton instead of behind him in a stack. 282, 374, 365 last season out of Austin Martin in 100 with a 113 WRC plus, solid xWOBA under the surface. It's a good bat. We'll see what it becomes in the longer term, but good numbers last year. Buxton, best thing about him, 542 plate appearances last year. That is I believe, career high. It's been a minute since he had made 500 plate appearances. 35 home runs, 24 stolen bases, didn't miss a beat, still one of the best players of when he's available. Full stop. Keeschel, 41-33. Excellent 207 plate appearances last season. Really excited to see what he's got for a full year. 14% strikeout, 9.2% walk last season. Had a 363 WOBA, but only a 324 X. That's a little bit of an alarm bell, something to at least keep your eye on. But slash 302, 382, 445 on the way, 134 WRC plus. There's quality there. Ryan Jeffers is a mix and match catcher with a little bit of upside for pop, but only hit 9 home runs and 464 plate appearances. The power was mostly gone last season. 131 ISO, 113 WRC plus. You can get there as a mixer for a fair price. Just filling out the position with a cleanup hitter has its value on DraftKings because you just get those good opportunities in that spot. You might buy an additional plate appearance for a very cheap catcher. It's not a bad way to go. Love the upside from Matt Wallner. 22 home runs and 392 chances last year at 262 ISO, 114 WRC plus. Again, we're kind of ignoring the xWOBA hovering around league average, slightly overperformed it last year. What I focus on, the monster barrel rate, 13.8 last year. Year before, 17.5. Year before that, 18.8 in mixed samples. A lot of strikeouts, but the ability to draw a walk, the ability to get on base. Needs to push that a little bit further to really get the most out of his WRC+. But the dude is a masher. So that is an interesting home run pick. 6.52, second on the team to Buxton. Not a bad option if you're stacking up Twins for a fair price. Josh Bell's another kind of interesting bat. I don't love him from the right side. He gets most of his power from the left. But 12% barrel, 47% hard hit last year. Did come away with 22 home runs. Didn't really hit for average, get on base all that special, 107 WRC+. But look where he was hovering with that xwOBA. 359. That's a major mark as far as the expected number. So, a little bit lurking under the surface as well for the veteran. Maybe in a better lineup now, maybe we see a little bit of upside out of Josh Bell in the long term. At worst, throwing darts at cheap DFS spots, not a bad option. Don't love him today, though. Victor Caratini, Royce Lewis, Brooks Lee down the bottom of the lineup. Lee, maybe a little bit of interest, here and there. Bad slash line last season, just an 81 WRC+, nothing to like about the WOBA. 16 home runs. I'm just more curious to see where it goes given the pedigree than like anything justifiable in those numbers. Royce Lewis, another mediocre season over only 403 plate appearances. Needs to show us consistency of staying on the field and actually delivering, commensurate with the reputation that he built in a brief little run. Orioles side of things, I warned you guys. Look at the Orioles popping for power. Got 4 Orioles above the magic number for home runs. This is our biggest source of home runs in the home run model today. Not our top-ranked guy overall. Or no, I'm sorry. Pete Alonso is our top-ranked guy overall. Was not the home run pick of the day. If you weren't here for the beginning of the show, O'Neal Cruz was the home run pick of the day. But Pete Alonso almost was. I just figured he'd be a popular home run pick. I think he's got one of the best prop odds to do it. O'Neal Cruz was a little bit longer while still being really good. But you've got a lot of power flashing for these Orioles. Part of the reason why, Joe Ryan, talented as he is, good as starter as he is, nearly a 4% home run rate last season, over our threshold for barrels, over our threshold for hard hit, over our threshold for exit velo. So we always talk about when you're over any 2 of those 3, let alone all 3, and you're a fly ball pitcher, there's a lot of home run upside against. And this Orioles team is now stacked with some good home run bats. I'm not saying necessarily that it's a spot where the Orioles explode for 12 runs and win the day as a stack, but I think there's a lot of upside for some power. Homer, 2-homer type game, and we'll see what's on base when those go, and then we'll see what they do sequencing wise. But look at the numbers for stacks. 3rd by projection on FanDuel, 1st by value, 4th and 1st on DraftKings, 1st by home run, 6th overall by Vegas total. So Vegas is in on the act a little bit as well. That's a mid-4s total. Not a lot of daylight between that 4.3 and the 4.6 that leads the slate. Just a lot of talent here for reasonable prices, I'll say. Especially FanDuel, 36, 33, 36 off the top for Gunnar Henderson, Taylor Ward, and Pete Alonso. That's got some purchasing power to it. And then you can average down a little bit by dropping a 4th one of these guys in there. There's power to that. We do not have this confirmed yet. Gunnar last year, 17 homers, 30 steals, a little bit of a slip. 274, 349, 438 is still tremendous. 120 WRC plus. Very, very good year by any measure. 49% hard hit, 8.5% barrel. Both those numbers down over the 2 seasons prior. Home run total slipped from 37 the year before. Lost 20 homers year over year in 50 some odd fewer plate appearances or 70 something fewer plate appearances. Lost 11 homers over the year before. So a little bit of concern there, but I like him to get it right back. We're at least giving him a lot of leash out of the gate here. And again, he wasn't bad. It's not like he did that and was terrible. He did that and was still super interesting. Very, very good fantasy asset. Those are the right prices for him at shortstop. Taylor Ward blasted 36 home runs last year, had a 247 ISO, makes excellent premium contact. Nice addition for power to this lineup. Pete Alonso, one of the best additions you can make for power, full stop in the game. 38 homers last year, 252 ISO, 141 WRC plus. Had a really, really strong bounce back for his slash line as well. 272, 347, 524 last year. It was a major step up from a couple years down in like the 230s. Bounce back to who he was, previous seasons. So monster year from Alonso. Look for him to come right back. That kind of quality again. I don't think we're calling for 50 home runs or anything like that, but 35 plus is easily on the board. Should be a major source of power in this Baltimore lineup. 14.81 again leads your entire slate today in the home run model. Adley Rutschman, looking for a bounce back season out of him. 365 pretty lost plate appearances last year, just a 91 WRC plus. Way too much talent there for him to struggle for that long. Tyler O'Neill, another guy, assuming he's in the lineup today. He is looking for home run number 7 on opening day in a row. I said that poorly, but you get me. It's a major narrative out there in the props and silliness community. There is nothing whatsoever in the world predictive about the fact that in 6 prior seasons running, he has hit a home run on opening day. He's just a very good power hitter when he's available. So like I said, given this 11, I had every justification to make him the home run pick today if I wanted to. I didn't do it just because of how buzzy it is. I didn't want to look like I was jumping on that bandwagon for people who don't know how we do things around here, newcomers. But that is a major, major power hitter. He was dead last season. He is injury rattled throughout his career. 199, 292, 392 is not going to pay the bills. 91 WRC plus. But look at the 360 xWOBA sitting there against that 297 actual mark, just for one indicator. Year before, in 473 plate appearances, 31 homers. That's who Tyler O'Neill is. 30-plus homers if he sees 450 plate appearances this year. Sammy Vasallo is interesting. 3,325 to fill out catcher. If you're not going to Adley, it's another spot where you can grab a little bit of a discount. You're potentially solid bat. He hit 4 home runs in 118 plate appearances. Otherwise, that slash line is to be ignored. He's got a lot more talent than that. Young kid just coming up, finding his way, though. Not somebody you necessarily want to rely on outside of just, I need a way to make this cheap. And you can see where he's landing in the home run model. So there is lurking power there. Kobe Mayo, a little bit of mix and match quality upside first baseman this year on DraftKings, third base, first base, very cheap on both sites. Had a 10.1% barrel rate to go with a lowly 35.8% hit rate, 11 homers last season, otherwise really ugly across 294 plate appearances. But you give him a little bit of leash maybe based on the 9.2% walks on the barrels. Colton Cowser's another guy you got to give some leash to, given the quality with which he strikes the ball from the left side. Major source of barrels, hard hit over the last 2 seasons. Also struck out at a 35.6% clip. So you get a ton of zeros out of Colton Cowser. Hit 16 homers, stole 14 bags, sub Mendoza, terrible slash line all season. 190 ISO, just an 83 WRC plus. You can see no quality whatsoever in the WOBA marks. So you take the good with the bad with a player like that, but he gets nice and cheap and he can definitely drive the ball. 9.14 in the home run model shouldn't be ignored if you're building a bunch of Orioles stacks. If you're building one, maybe you skip him. And then Blaze Alexander fills out the bottom. He made good contact through last season. 7 home runs, mix and match quality guy. Orioles bats. Twins bats. Joe Ryan, Trevor Rogers. I think the pitchers are more loosely playable. Ryan is not poorly priced at 87 at 91, and he projects out just fine. Like 5th guy down the board or whatever. Yeah, a little further. What's that? 7 down? 7th guy down the board. But right in line with this handful of pitchers. So not unreasonable to think that Joe Ryan could succeed here. And there are plenty of strikeouts through this lineup for him. So if the O's don't connect with that home run or 2 home runs against him today, could be a very special start for Joe Ryan because he is good. 28.2% strikeouts last year, 11.6% swinging strike rate, had the 3.42 ERA that we talked about. So outside of the issue with giving up premium contact fly balls and home run trajectory, he's really, really good. Ace caliber pitcher. And then Rogers is just a matter of where you land in the faith conversation. I land on the having no faith in him side of that. So bottom of the board in this one for me. Bo Sox and the Reds. Boston drawing a mid-4s implied total. Another one of the juicier totals on the board. Going up against Andrew Abbott. Average 166 and a third last season, struck out nearly 22%, 6.3% walk, leaves him at just 15.5% K-minus BB. Did pitch to a 2.87 ERA, but a much bumpier 4.31 xFIP, 4.20 Sierra last season. That's who he really is. So a targetable pitcher, fly ball trajectory pitcher, 19.2 degree average launch, but didn't really have issues with home runs last year. 2.78% home run rate, so no problems there. But overall, below average stuff outside of just his slider. 96.85 measurement by Stuff Plus for the full arsenal. Another pitcher who locates a little bit better than the nastiness of his stuff, so to speak. but not somebody I'm looking for any pitches in a bandbox. This Reds stadium is just a target for bats. So that leads me into some of these Red Sox. I like the upside for power that Boston brings. I like the upside for run creation that they bring with this lineup. A lot of interesting bats through here. We'll see what configuration of this we get against the lefty. Might not get Willie Abreu, although day one, maybe they go with him. But that's a guy who gets platooned out a lot of the time. Excellent bat in the heart of the lineup. If he happens to be in there, I'll probably take some shots on him. I like the cheap price on the upside for that stick. And that's a spot where, with Andrew Abbott, maybe you make the argument, kind of like I said no to with Paul Skeens. Red Sox, mid-fours implied total against a mediocre pitcher. Maybe you do get into that bullpen by the mid-fifth, by the sixth inning, and you get a little bit more time against the bullpen and find some upside that way. So maybe that's where Abreu comes into play. He's got a 9.24 in the home run model. If he plays today, he hit 22 and 417 platoon-based plate appearances, mostly against the strong side. Last year, excellent stick in the heart of the lineup. Had a very enthusiastic WBC home run as well, if you missed it. 110 WRC plus out of him. All the way up at the top of the lineup, Roman Anthony, though, 5,400, 3,700, star-making 303 plate appearances last season, 8 homers, tremendous slash line at 292, 396, 463. 372 xWOBA underneath the covers there, 140 WRC plus in the half season. That is a star in the making. 15.5% barrel, 60.3% hard hit, among the best in the business. Trevor Story, in a year where Byron Buxton had 500 and whatever I said plate appearances, Trevor Story made 654 plate appearances. Crazy. Hit 25 home runs, stole 31 bases last year. That is a monster bounce back season from a guy that we talked about year after year. There's still talent here. Just needs to be on the field. And totally came through. If you like his chances to stay on the field, he's a good investment in season long. If you like him for what he did last year and you believe any of that, which I fully do, even though he had a 311 xWOBA under his just average 320 WOBA, I believe in the counting stats with Trevor Story. I believe in that premium contact. So fire away. 4,000, 3,400, arguably 500 too cheap on DraftKings. Jarren Duran hit the ball very well last season in terms of his premium contact numbers. Came away with 16 home runs, 24 stolen bases, adequate, not special slash line, 185 ISO, 111 WRC plus. Good, not great option. 49 is a little more than I would want to pay for him, especially with Story at 4,000, with Wilson Contreras at 41 and so on. But a playable piece for sure. Stat filler as far as your fantasy categories as well. 4 counting stats across the board. Wilson at just 41 at 3,000, hit 20 home runs last season. Got on base at a 344 clip. Created runs 24% better than average. Another player underperformed his xWOBA while still being very strong at 344 in the actual number. A little bit more to give. Could have come away with 25-ish or 22 and a half home runs last year. But I like the upside. Still makes excellent contact. Strikes out a little bit, but still draws his walks. We were here. Caleb Durbin is kind of a buzzy player. He came over in the Kyle Harrison trade. For me, maybe I'm wrong. That's one I think the Red Sox end up regretting. I think Harrison ends up fulfilling his potential as a Brewer. And I think Caleb Durbin maybe disappoints a little bit here. He was okay last year. Got on base at a 334 clip, hit 11 home runs, 18 stolen bases, and 506 plate appearances. Just a 130 ISO, just a 319 WOBA, so tick below average. A 312 xWOBA underneath that says that even the tick below average was actually a slight overperformance. He doesn't strike out. He puts the ball in play. He's one of these contact-oriented hitters who's constantly putting the ball in play, but he's a singles hitter. 9.9% barrel, 5.9%, 9.9% walk, 5.9% strikeout, 5.9% walk. Just 4% barrels and 26.9% hard hits. So we're talking about somebody who's dinking and dunking his way to success. I read a couple think pieces talking about the pull side and how good he is going to it. And maybe that works out on days like today where they're on the road, but you start thinking about for the full season dealing with Fenway. And that's going to cut into his home runs. His expected home run for Fenway last year was like 6 against that 11 that he actually hit. So I don't love the player. I think he's going to be effective from day to day for DFS purposes, but outfield only, third base only. I'd rather have him at second, I think. If I'm going to third, I'd rather have a bopper in the third base spot, and that is just not who he is. Mix and match quality player until further notice. Cedric Rafael, another mix and matchy kind of a guy, always fills counting stats, but comes up short in terms of the WOBA marks, comes up short in terms of his actual run creation. Counting stats wise, fantasy wise, better player than he actually is on the field. Marcelo Mayer was kind of disappointing, over 136 chances, but still a young kid figuring things out. You give him a little upside. 2,900, fair price, 25 on FanDuel, perfectly fine. Carlos Narvaez, mix and match quality catcher, 15 homers and 446 chances last year. On the red side, 365 implied total going up against one of the best starters on the board, lefty Garrett Crochet. An absurd 205 and a third innings last year. If you are his elbow ligaments, you're probably not happy about that. It's my one point of hesitation with Garrett Crochet in terms of long-term success, in terms of any kind of keeper investment. I just worry about those innings. Went from relief work to reconstructed elbow to 100 and change innings in a breakout season to 205. It's just a lot. It is a lot, especially the way he pitches. But he's terrific. 29% CSW last season, 31.3% strikeout, 25.6 strikeout minus walk rate last year. Pitched to a 2.59 ERA with a 2.64 xFIP, 2.86 SIERA in support. Everything is exactly as real as it looks on the surface. He is this good. So fire away with Garrett Crochet shares against this Reds team. I'll say, you throw the ballpark into the mix. It's a little bit of a ding working against him. But it's a tremendous projection, second highest projection on the board behind Skubal. And there are a ton of strikeouts available. 25.2% for this entire lineup last year. And through the heart of the lineup right there, those 7 hitters, that's a 27.3% strikeout rate from last season. A lot of Ks here. Some good, talented players. Elly De La Cruz, most especially, 5,500, 3,800 for the superstar. 22 homers, 37 steals, solid slash line last season. Needs to continue the growth trends, though. There's some nits you can definitely pick here with Elly, but makes very good contact, steals bases, fills categories, and should see a better season with a little bit of additional support in the lineup this year. They went out and got Eugenio Suarez, one of our favorite home run hitters in the league. 49 homers last year in a tremendous, tremendous season. He's only 4,500 today, guys, sitting behind Elly De La Cruz in this projected lineup. Not sure what that's all about. 3,300 on the FanDuel slate. That is cheap for the upside that Eugenio brings. Righty bat against lefty. Maybe he finds a little bit of premium contact. One good batted ball event changes the day for both him and Garrett Crochet. Ahead of those two, in the projected anyway, TJ Friedl, Matt McLain. McLain, disappointing year in 577 last year. Came away with 15 homers, 18 stolen bases. Had a massive, massive spring. If you're tracking spring training, he is like your spring training leader in the world. 2 years ago, 16 homers, 14 stolen bases, slash 293, 57, 507 over 403 plate appearances with a 216 ISO. So where's the truth? Is the truth that guy? Is the truth the spring guy that we saw mashing all spring long? Or is it more the guy that we saw last season? Filled some categories, but ultimately pretty disappointing. I lean toward the talented guy, but I don't have a ton of evidence to really give you to make that decision. It's just kind of gut on that one. Because you can see, average, right? This is not special. 10.8% barrel. Okay, that's a little above average. That's fine, but a fairly average hard hit rate that season. Did draw walks last year, but strikes out quite a bit. Who are you, Matt McLain? I think if you're going to the Reds, you're being super contrarian today. You want to grab that right-handed power. You want to grab that spot in the lineup, and you definitely want to fill out second base with that player with those cheap price tags. So a lot of reasons to go there if you're playing Reds. Not a lot of reasons to go to the Reds necessarily, though. Friedel's just a mix and match quality guy. 14 homers, 12 steals. Perfectly fine. Got on base a lot last year. 364 on base over 685 plate appearances. 109 WRC plus is pretty good, but another guy outperformed his ex-Wobo by 30 points. Talk Suarez. Spencer Steer, 34, 28. Multi-position eligible across the board. 21 homers last year. He's okay. Think Austin Hayes when you think Spencer Steer. They're essentially the same guy. Chase 20 home runs maybe, but you're not going to do a whole hell of a lot else. And actually, that's unfair to Austin Hayes, who's a better hit tool player than Spencer Steer. Sal Stewart is kind of interesting. Sliding into the 6th spot in the projected lineup, also first and third base on DraftKings, just 2,600 at third base. That's an interesting way to fill out third if you're already going to the Reds. 5 home runs and 58 plate appearances last season, 17.5% barrel, 52.5% hard hit. A lot of premium contact in the teeny tiny meaningless sample. A lot of power lurking there, though. Tyler Stevenson, a good knock rate catcher who hit 13 homers last year. Noelvi Marte remains to be seen who he actually is as well. 14 homers, 10 steals, up and down kind of a slash line. 321 WOBA, 304 xWOBA, 101 WRC plus last season. Half a season with 360 plate appearances. Jury's still out on that one, but came up with a lot of pedigree. And then Ke'Bryan Hayes puts good wood on the ball, never ever sees anything for it. Consistently in the lower 40s, had an upper 40% hard hit season, sub 20% strikeouts, just does not find success. Sub 300 on base last year, hit just 5 home runs and 570 chances. You can do better. Garrett Crochet, Red Sox bats. I think it actually is Reds bats. Just because it's Ellie, it's Eugenio, and then whoever. Small stacks, throw it away. Not really a priority by any means. One of the lower ranked stacks on the board, if memory serves. Actually, kind of mid-board. Right in there with the Pirates and the Mets. 10, 11. 15 by DK value, though. That's ugly. So, not a team you want to go chase against Crochet necessarily. Handful of games to go coming up on 11:30. Joseph Garnett, what's going on, man? You're 12 of DFS MLB. Let's get it. Team McB, thanks for the content. Glad to see you here grinding again. Yeah, buddy. Absolutely. Check out rotoscouts.com, gang. Hit the like button and subscribe for me here, and then read that promo that's scrolling across the screen. If you're going over to Rotoscouts to pick up a subscription, get behind the paywall, access the projections, the top stacks, the power rankings, the home run picks, all the premium content, the game-by-game breakdowns where you get this dashboard as a graphic for every single game. You can look at the stats on your own and not have to listen to the sonorous sounds of my voice. Sonorous sounds? I don't think so. But check that out. Promo code OD26, opening day 26, OD26. $4 first week on a weekly, $15 first month on a monthly. Enough said. Angels 350 implied total going up against the Astros at a 4.59. Mentioned this game off the top. I really like Jose Soriano's upside this season. I like him to suppress runs. I think that 4.59 might be a little bit aggressive for the Astros. It is a good lineup, but I think there's talent there. Pitched to just a 4.26 ERA last season, but you can see it right out of the gate. 3.54 xFIP under the surface. A little bit higher in the Sierra, but still a sub-4 Sierra. Put too many guys on base. 1.40 whip is problematic. That's where a lot of the bumps come from. 10.8% walk rate, problematic. Just a 10.2 K minus BB. That's awful. We're hunting for 20 in that stat. 21% strikeout. But what I love about Jose Soriano, in addition to the blazing fastball, negative 2.8 degree average launch angle, 1.66% home run rate. So I don't care that guys hit the ball squarely. I don't really care that much about that exit velo outside of it does tend to equal, shots through the infield and so on. But if you're keeping the ball down, you've at least landed on the radar in terms of being a fantasy starter, in terms of knocking a team down a little bit unexpectedly from what their implied total might otherwise suggest, what their talent might otherwise suggest. Just that ability to limit the home run upside, just that ability to get out of a jam with a ground ball, induce a double play, goes a long, long way. So, quality pitcher, you can see some of it, the stuff plus, not where it needs to be, but both of those pretty significantly above average. There's a potential monster lurking there. A couple years ago in relief, he also struck out 30+%. It's not going to go back to those numbers as a starter, but if he ever actually puts it all together, it wouldn't shock me to see the walks drop to 8, 8.5, and the strikeouts go up to, I don't want to say 25, so I'll say 24.5. But I think he's maybe got a shot to suppress the Astros. I'm not necessarily even advocating for that many shares of him in terms of actually using him for DFS. It's more about knocking the Astros down a peg for where they might finish stacks-wise offensively. This $6,200 for Soriano on DraftKings, though, is very interesting. I think that puts him in the SP2 mix very firmly. I think you can use lineups where you're doubling down on cheap pitching, go cheap, and load up on bats like I talked about at the beginning. So he's on the board for that, for sure, and talented enough to do it. This is not a terrible starter that we're just throwing darts at. Hunter Brown is the better of these two pitchers. 185 innings last year, 28.3% CSW, had a 20.4 strikeout minus walk, like I just said before. We're hunting for 20s in that category. 2.43 ERA. The xFIP, the Sierra, about a run higher, a little bit under a run higher. But those are still very, very strong numbers. He's a very good pitcher. Limited hard hits. Held exit velocity to just 86.1 miles an hour. So very good at checking power. Mike Trout creeping up exactly to the magic number in the home run model. Zach Neto hovering just below it. You see a little bit of power lingering on Joe Adell and Jorge Soler. It's more about those guys than about the matchup against Hunter Brown with those numbers. But Brown is excellent at checking power, just 2.33% home run rate. So I'm not really chasing Angels for power. That's what ultimately was the deciding factor in not using Mike Trout as a home run pick at what I'm sure is going to be fairly low ownership. If you choose to attack Brown, the Angels are an interesting team. They've paid off fantasy upside over the past couple of seasons, mostly through power, mostly through premium contact. You can see how many guys in this team have double-digit barrel rates from last year. Decent hard hit rates through the mix, although nobody got into the 50s. Taylor Ward out of the mix, of course. But there is not a total lack of quality with this team. You obviously still do have Mike Trout. Zach Neto's a tremendous hitter who 26 homers, 26 stolen bases from the shortstop last year. He slots in at just 4,200, 3,100. Not a lot of 26 seasons for those prices, especially at shortstop. 344 xWOBA tells me he's got a little bit more lurking as well. Mike Trout's Mike Trout, and he only costs 43.33. Hit 26 home runs in 556 plate appearances. How about that? Not only did we get Buxton, not only did we get Trevor Story, we got 556 out of Mike Trout last year. You can call it a disappointing season at 232, 359, 439, but that is still a killer on base. Hit 26 home runs. Had a 358 xWOBA underneath his 343 actual. Created runs 20% better than average. Yeah, he's not who he once was. He struck out 32% of the time. But there's still a very, very good, dangerous player in there. Nolan Shanuel gets on base, 353 on base last season. Doesn't have for a lot of power. More hit tool focused on base. Not a bad option in the 3-hole, though. Jorge Soler is a player this team really needs to bounce back for power. 12 home runs and 315 chances. The lights were out last year for Jorge Soler. Not sure he ever actually gets it back. Did have a 12.7% barrel, but you can see the slip in the hard hit rate. A lot of strikeouts, not enough walks. Walks came down by several percentage points that damaged him for on base. Did not find his way to any kind of success last year. If he's not hitting home runs, he's not going to give you much else. Joan Moncada is an interesting player. 12 homers last season and 289 plate appearances, a 117 WRC plus, though. You can see he overperformed his xWOBA by a couple points, but put really good wood on the ball. 14.3% barrel, drew some walks last season. Not a star, but a mix and match guy if you're already going to Angels. Joe Adell has flashes of stardom. 37 homers last season. The stolen bases were down, but that was one of our guys out of the gate last year who really, really came through with the power in a big way. 17.2% barrel, 49.6% hard hit last season. I like him to mash, if nothing else. I don't know that we get the stolen base upside back. I don't know that he ever learns how to get on base at better than a 293 last year, better than a 300 clip. But that is a very real, very good power hitter. Josh Lowe on this team now. Not a ton of upside anymore. 220, 283, 366, really low-end season. 298 xWOBA. There's really nothing hiding under there to say that he was better than than his surface numbers last year. Just was kind of bad. He's inexpensive. He can steal you a base. Hits the occasional home run, but not a go-to. Logan O'Hoppe at the bottom, 19 homers, but otherwise pretty poor in 451 plate appearances last year. Just a 72 WRC plus. Does drive the ball effectively, though. If you're desperate for a catcher option and you're playing Angels, you're stacking them up, then maybe. And then Adam Frazier, mixer. I do remember that name, Joe. All right. Captain America Bleeds. Welcome back, Cap. See Wiz, thank you very much. Great content as always. Tiz, what was the evil I was putting on you? Apologies for that, buddy. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. I haven't seen that in a while. Talladega Nights. Semi-Pro was on at like 5 o'clock this morning as I was finalizing the initial cut of projections, though. It's a funny movie. Let's keep moving, though. We're running up on noon. It's 11:34. So that 459 total for the Astros. Again, that is a good lineup. I don't want to take it away from them fully, but I think they go under. I love Jordan Alvarez. I love that we get him back for a full season. This is one of the absolute best hitters in baseball. In 199 opportunities last year, 273, 367, 430 in his return from injury, 118 WRC plus. You know what I'm going to say already. 393 xWOBA underneath that 338 actual. That's who Jordan Alvarez really is. This is, he is right up there with the Aaron Judges of the world. He's a tremendous hitter. He has elite power, ultra premium contact, doesn't strike out, draws walks. Literally just one of the best in the game. So love that he's here. 52 feels a little bit light. 38 feels a little bit light. That's a $4,000 player at least. Jeremy Pena off the top. Solid year last year. Got on base like crazy. Didn't hit for a ton of power, but came away with 17 homers, 20 stolen bases. Good season by the marks for WOBA. You can see he outperformed the xWOBA by about 30 points. 135 WRC plus. I could see him coming back down the other side of that and underperforming expectations, given that they've inflated a little bit this year. I prefer Pena when he's got low expectations that he can overperform rather than the other way around. Jose Altuve, another year in the sun, 26 homers, 10 stolen bases for him in 654 last year. The stolen bases are probably never coming back at this point. The power continues to linger despite not really making good contact. He just gets it done. Tiny little guy who just happens to be able to hit home runs. Has never struck out a lot. Draws an okay walks number, but puts a ton of balls in play. Finds his success that way. 113 WRC plus. But another guy you can see outperformed the xWOBA by about 30 points last year. At a certain point, he's going to hit the wall, and you're never going to see him again. It's just going to be done. But we're not there yet. So if you're going to the Astros, it's not a bad buy at 4,400. Second base only on DraftKings, still has that outfield eligibility on the FanDuel slate, which makes nice flexibility. Carlos Correa back with the Astros midseason last year, 3,200, 2,800 across the board. Fairly affordable. Hit 13 home runs, had a decent slash line, got on base a little bit, 106 WRC plus last season. Still hits the ball very hard. I wouldn't say he's a major home run hitter, but he stings the ball for sure. 45.9% hard hit. The barrels slipped by about 3 percentage points last year. Something to watch there in terms of what the home run total looks like. We're probably dealing with a 12 to 15 homer guy, but I think he holds up that slash line. I think he holds up that run creation mark this season. Joey Loperfido landed back with this team where it all began. 2,200, 2,400, very cheap. Solid 104 plate appearances, had a lot of flash for power upside, the ability to get on base through the minor leagues. We'll see what it translates to. He's never really roared to life in the major leagues, but that was a good 104 plate appearances last year. Cam Smith, interesting option. 236, 312, 358. Showed some flashes through the season last year, but needs to improve. 298 WOBA and a 304 xWOBA are pretty lacking. But there's an interesting bat in there. I feel like he was getting on base into the more aggressive clip earlier in the season, if I'm remembering correctly. Not somebody I want to write off, but not somebody I'm necessarily calling out to go to early in fantasy. Just somebody maybe we keep an eye on. Christian Walker, down toward the bottom of the lineup. Weak season. He did hit 27 homers last year, but it came away with just a 183 ISO and 99 WRC plus. Major slip for a guy who was formerly a very good hitter along with a lot of power over a handful of seasons. So big dip there, not exactly what the Astros thought they were buying, I don't think. But now you're getting a guy who still did hit those 27 homers, had a 12.9% barrel and a 46.1% hard hit last year, and he only cost 38 at first base on DraftKings now, 3,000 at first base on FanDuel. Any signs of life from Christian Walker get immediately interesting. Again, look where these home run marks are against Jose Soriano, who just doesn't tend to give them up. So maybe not today, but somebody keep in mind early in the season for these Astros before the price goes back up if he happens to hit. Diaz, 567 disappointing plate appearances, did end up at 20 home runs last year, but only a 284 on base, a 300 WOBA against a 326 xWOBA. Really underperformed my expectations. I really liked him going into last year. Play every day kind of a guy with catcher eligibility is fantastic. Doesn't strike out, doesn't really draw walks, so a ton of balls in play, and hit the ball more effectively in seasons past. 7.6% barrel. The barrels actually went up, but he lost a lot of hard hit year over year. So I'm interested to see the bounce back. He's only 35 where you need to play catchers, 28 where you don't, but I would include him in some Astros stacks if I'm building a handful of Astros stacks on FanDuel as well, because he's just one of the better bats. And again, a lot of balls in play is kind of what I want against Jose Soriano, because if I'm looking for guys to rocket balls through the infield against a guy who's not giving up a lot of fly balls, then I need those balls in play. So what better option? And then Jake Myers down the bottom of the lineup. Decent season last year, 16 stolen bases, 354 on base. Nice little tidy 107 WRC plus. Nobody's idea of a star, but a playable option. Hunter Brown. Jose Soriano for the discount. Astros bats, Angels bats. Would use Jose Soriano in a few spots. If you're building more than 5 lineups, I would throw, especially on DraftKings where he's that cheap, I would throw one in. Oh, the crochet thing. Yeah, sorry about that, buddy. That probably is unfair to throw into the mix on opening day. You're right. It's just something that always lingers in my head with that pitcher. You know, I was shocked with the Red Sox just being like, yeah, go out there and throw 9 innings. What do we care? Last season after they got him. I thought they were going to be careful. I thought we were looking at 175 tops. Guy went out and threw 205 innings. Whew. But yes, knock on wood, he's on the mound. Even though he's on the Red Sox, I want to see Garrett Crochet throw a full season. Speaking of guys I want to see throw a full season, Tarek Skubal managed to bring him back in our free agency in the Dynasty League without having to give him a no trade. Key, his salary against our, what's our cap? $430 hard cap. Excuse me, hard cap. $400 soft cap. His salary is $89 this year. Nobody bid. I put him out for an $89 3-year free agent contract. Nobody bid. I was shocked. I thought I was going to lose him to $100 salary and a no-trade clause. So that's good. Now we just need him to deliver again. Last season, 32.2% strikeout, 4.4% walk. Excellent 27.8 K minus BB, 32.1% CSW. Utterly elite across the entire arsenal. Doesn't get much better than that. So yeah, it's Tarek Skubal. He's extremely expensive. He outperforms the field in projections by 8 points or by 5 points on FanDuel scoring. A couple few points on DraftKings, 2.5, 3 on DraftKings. Top of the board with a bullet. Going up against the Padres team with a 3.31 implied total. Not a ton of strikeout in that lineup just in their end, but it's Tarek Skubal. It doesn't really matter. He'll find it. But sub 20% strikeout rate on average. Only even one guy, Ramon Laureano, even 24%. Nobody 25% plus. A lot of guys below 20. So we're challenging enough spot in the first start of the season. Nick Pivetta, as mentioned, kind of like the Tigers upside. They're flashing a little bit of power here as well. One of the better marks for home runs. Tigers just fell in 6th overall, but 3rd by value on both sites and 2nd in the home run model. So a little Baltimore, little Tigers combo in terms of a double stack there. Not uninteresting against 2 quality pitchers. That might be one that, casual players kind of overlook. Oh, I don't want to tackle Joe Ryan. I don't want to tackle Nick Pivetta, even though those are, okay totals. Last year, 26.4% strikeout for Pivetta, pitched to a 2.87 ERA, but right here, 3.85 xFIP, 3.69 Sierra. Those are good numbers, not great numbers, but they betray that 2.87 ERA. And he's another pitcher. Fly ball trajectory, extreme fly ball trajectory, a lot of hard hit, a lot of exit velo, a lot of barrels. Just 3.05% home runs last season. I would call that a little bit lucky, given that kind of contact on that kind of trajectory. Below average stuff by Stuff Plus. Year before, 26 starts, 4.71% home run rate. That's the real result. It's almost the exact same contact. He gave up actually more hard hit last year. But that's the real kind of result when you're giving up that kind of premium contact. So very, very lucky to limit home runs the way that he did last year. I like the upside for bats like Kerry Carpenter off the top of the board. He was one of the top-ranked players in the entire home run model. Same thing with Riley Green. Couple of lefty mashers in this lineup. 44,300 for Kerry is not a bad price either. 26 homers last year. Had a 335 WOBA and xWOBA, 115 WRC plus. Gleyber Torres. Let's talk Gleyber Torres real quick. Because people, for some reason, don't like Gleyber Torres, and I fail to understand it. Had one bad year at the end of his Yankees run. Got himself traded out of town. Even that year, non-tragic. Downturn, but non-tragic. Lost a little bit of power. He's not going to be the 38 home run guy or whatever that one big season he had once upon a time, late 20 teens was. But this is a very, very good hitter. And he fills second base, a short position. This is one of your better second base options across the entire league. That last season in the Bronx, He went up from 14.6. He had made tremendous improvements here in 23 and lost a little bit of it. Gave back some strikeout, lost a little bit of power, ended up in Detroit, and immediately returned to form. 16.1% strikeout last year, 13.5%. I believe that's a career high walk rate. 628 plate appearances. He only hit 16 home runs. The power was definitely down. I'm giving you that. 256, 358, 387 slash line. Just a 132 ISO. Again, power was down. 332 WOBA, above average. 363 xWOBA. That is by 8 or 9 points, the highest second base WOBA among qualified hitters. xWOBA rather. Gleyber Torres is very, very good. 3,900, 3,000 ahead of some of their power bats. Love that option. Absolutely would play Gleyber Torres. Colt Keith hits the ball squarely. Looking for a little breakout from Colt Keith. He hit 13 home runs and 468 last year. Had very good numbers here. 109 WRC plus. He was a positive contributor. I think there's a little bit more in there. Came up as a very highly regarded prospect a few years ago. Hasn't fully delivered on it. That was, again, not a bad season. Give him 500 plus this year. Let's see what he can actually do. Riley Green, again, 4,400. Monster barrel rate last season, 45.5% hard hit. You get a lot of strikeouts out of him. Not enough walks. But monster power upside. He hit 36 long balls last year. 121 WRC plus, a 235 ISO. Just an absolute masher. Love the upside for him and Carey to go deep against this pitcher. Spencer Torkelson hit 31 home runs last season. 118 WRC plus, a 217 ISO out of him. Another guy, 13.5% barrels, 45% hard hits. That is a good power bat. Inconsistent, sure. Never going to really deliver a lot of average, but gets on base at an adequate level. Drew an 11.1% walk. That was a nice uptick last year. A lot of growth last season. One of the top prospects in baseball drops into this lineup. He's the dead man. Holy shit. FanDuel, what are we doing? I hadn't noticed that until just then. You saw me notice Kevin McGonagall's FanDuel price live. Yeah, that is way too cheap. Kevin McGonagall has one of the best hit tools in minor league baseball coming up. He is the top prospect to start the season this year. Getting a job right out of camp. 8.91 in your home run model today to illustrate the quality. That is a stupid broken price. That's going to help you get to that Tiger stack, especially if you did that and like that on FanDuel. That's a 4-man for $27.25. It includes McGonigal, Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, and Colt Keith. And you can honestly just grab Gleyber in that and get to the better of those two bats. But Keith gives you the positional flex a little bit lower of a price. That is a major discount on FanDuel that I hadn't seen. McGonigal last year, 397 plate appearances across from low A to double A. So the kid is good enough that he's skipping triple A entirely. 305, 408, 583 with a 182 WRC plus last year. Yeah, this is in the minor leagues, but he's only 20. 19 home runs, 10 stolen bases. Kid's a potential monster. Struck out 11.6%, walk 14.9. Absolute star in the making. Too cheap at 3,000. That's where I was starting. I was about to say, wow, that's way too cheap. And then I noticed this one, and that's just dumb. Dylan Dingler's got a little pop in his bat, 13 homers in a pretty decent season, 109 WRC plus season. Had a really interesting 351 xWOBA last year in those plate appearances. There's a little bit more to give with Dylan Dingler there. A lot of that comes from the premium contact that he made. Parker Meadows, we'll see what we get. There's talent there, but underperforms that talent in pretty consistently. And then Javier Baez had a little breakout at the beginning of last year. It was, suddenly, oh, wow, Javi's hitting a little bit this year. And it kind of tapered off. Finished the year at 257, 282, 398 with an 86 WRC plus. If he's in the lineup, you mix and match your way through Javi. Really not looking to go Padres to attack Tarek Skubal. But if you're a madman and you're looking to do that kind of a thing, you've at least got some decent names to work with. Fernando Tatis off the top, 5,600, 4,000 against Tarek Skubal. No, thank you. That is their top hitter, though. He was down a little bit for power, 25 homers, 32 stolen bases in a very good season last year. Had a 370 xWOBA under that 353 actual mark. Both numbers are tremendous, but obviously there's a little bit more to give. A lot of it comes from the excellent premium contact, but he did lose a little bit in barrel year over year. Just something to watch whether the power comes back to the 30-plus home run mark. But again, a category filler extraordinaire in the top spot in this projected version of the lineup. And in the top spot in the actual version of the lineup. We had a few other confirmed lineups that I may have skipped. Apologies if I talked through anybody that was not in a lineup or in a lineup. So Tatis off the top there. Xander Bogaerts at 3,800, 2,900 with middle infield eligibility in both spots on FanDuel. Not completely uninteresting. It was up and down last season. We were tracking him throughout the season because I liked him to, maybe outperform expectations. I would say slightly did. 104 WRC plus, maybe right on expectations. 11 homers was a little light. 20 stolen bases was a little heavy. Maybe we gain a few homers, lose a few stolen bases in the long term this season. But hitting second in this lineup, if you're going to this team, it's a key bat given those prices. But again, we're not attacking Tarek Skubal all that aggressively. Manny Machado still getting it done. Excellent barrel, hard hit rates, 27 homers, stole 14 bases last season. Tremendous player, 123 WRC plus. Righty bat against the lefty. If you're going to the Padres, you're not leaving Manny out of the mix. Lefty Jackson Merrill, 47-33. Didn't match the previous season's expectations, but did end up with a 13% barrel rate on the year, over 483 plate appearances, missed some time with injury. Okay, but not good slash line. 193 ISO, again, okay, but not where we wanted him. 116 WRC plus. Ultimately, it's not a bad year. It's just short of expectation. Checking in at 47-33. Again, not against Skubal. Even against the lesser pitcher that might be a little high priced for what he was last year. But what we know the actual talent is not necessarily mispriced. Miguel Andujar's cheap at 28 across the board. Very strong season, over 341 plate appearances out of him last year. 318, 352, 470, 10 home runs that nobody really saw coming. 125 WRC plus. Okay bat, but again, not really against Skubal. If you're going to attack Skubal, though, that is a right-handed bat. It is a guy who effectively puts the ball in play by limiting strikeouts, putting good wood on the ball, or putting wood on the ball anyway. So that's the kind of player that you would maybe want to get to if you're choosing to attack Skubal as your last man in alongside the stars in this lineup. And he helps cheapen things up a little bit. Gavin Sheets, a little bit of lefty pop there, 19 home runs, a 177 ISO is not great, but had a 340 xWOB under the surface, kind of underperformed his expectations last season. Ramon Laureano overperformed last year, 24 homers in a tremendous season, 364 WOBA, 362 xWOBA. So by the numbers, he actually didn't overperform. He was who he was. But by preseason industry expectations, dramatically overperformed. Has always been a talented guy, fills fantasy categories, but that was probably his best overall season. Freddie Furman, Jake Cronenworth, mix and match pieces down the bottom. Furman hits for a little bit of average, doesn't have all that much thump in the bat, and failed to get on base at even a 300 clip last year. Jake Cronenworth, not uninteresting though, as a wraparound option. Again, we're not really attacking Tarek Skubal, but if you were to do it and you're not necessarily going there, then if you want these guys, taking this guy who got on base at a 367 clip and considering him the actual leadoff hitter, the second, third, and fourth time through the lineup ahead of those bats, not an uninteresting way to stack Padres. It's just, given that total, given this pitcher, not a spot you want to be in. Tarek Skubal, Tigers bats, Nick Pivetta, Padres bats. I don't really want much Pivetta. I don't really want any Padres. 2 to go. 11:52. I was shooting for noon. Not terrible. Powerhouse Caleb Durbin batting fifth. I'm so curious to see. We had that team that my buddy Lou, Mike, and I share. We had like a 3-hour text message debate where I did not want to take Caleb Durbin, and my buddy Lou really wanted to take Caleb Durbin. We don't have him, so it'll be interesting to watch that one. Texas Rangers and Nathan Eovaldi on the mound. Very, very good pitcher. 22 starts last year, 130 innings, 26% strikeout, 4.2% walk rate, 29% CSW, the 12.8% swinging strike rate, 1.73 ERA, absolutely sparkling. The real number is probably that 303 xFIP, 317 Sierra, but he was very good last year when he was available. Lost a little bit of time, obviously. You missed 10 starts in there at the end of the season, but a very effective starter. It's going up against a really challenging Phillies lineup, though. 4.45 implied total, one of the better numbers on the board. Some major home run hitters, some excellent bats in this Phillies lineup. I do like Eovaldi. I do like that $8,300 price on DraftKings. Maybe you throw a few darts over there. I don't think I tangle with too much Eovaldi, though, at $10,000 on FanDuel, just where he tracks compared to the other $10,000 pitchers on that slate. But not a terrible guy to throw those darts with. Limited strikeout upside, though, at least through the heart of this lineup. Down bottom, though, there's some Ks. Some strikeout on Kyle Schwarber, obviously, but an incredibly dangerous hitter there. Going the other way, Christopher Sanchez, just one of the best pitchers in the game. Lefty, 25.9% strikeout, 5.6% walk, induced a 13.6% swinging strike rate last season. Worked to a 2.57 ERA with a 2.81 xFIP. Slightly higher 3.06 SIERA. Even if you're calling that the real number, that's a tremendous, tremendous season. Very good at keeping the ball in the yard. 1.52% home run rate last season. Stuff Plus loves him. I like him to maybe even take a step even further forward. So tremendous option. Going up against a Rangers team that is okay at best. There's not a ton to like about this Rangers squad. 23% strikeout rate on average. Nobody incredibly bad, but some solidly mid-20s strikeout guys throughout that lineup. Corey Seager is an excellent batter, struck out less than 20% last season. Evan Carter also struck out less than 20%. Everybody else above. So there are some targets in there for Chrissy Sanchez to find some Ks along the way. I like the innings. I like the upside for a win. A quality start where that matters is maybe in the mix. So just a very strong option. 9,000, 9,800. Pretty fair. I'd rather have Sanchez at 98 than Eovaldi at 10 in this matchup. Starting at the top of the Rangers, Nimmo, 4,100, 3,100, coming off of a fair season. The on bases slipped over the years, but the power is holding. 25 homers, 13 steals, a 114 WRC plus. You can see just average in terms of the WOBA and the expected marks there. Wyatt Langford's got a lot of upside. 14% barrel. Look at that run of barrel rates. 14% for him, 15-3, 13-9 for Corey Seager, Jake Berger. It's a good stretch of power hitters. They didn't really come through with results last year. 22, 21, and 16 home runs for those three. I like each of those hitters to overperform those markers or to beat those home run totals from last year. So a little upside up at the top for the Rangers, most especially around Corey Seager. By the way, $4,300 for Corey Seager on DraftKings is a stupid low price. Go grab that. 35 is more correct on FanDuel, arguably a few bucks cheap there as well. That remains one of the hardest hitting, best hitting shortstops in baseball. I don't love attacking Chris Sanchez with him. It's not a spot for me today, but if you're going to the Rangers, absolute top priority in that lineup is Corey Seager. Berger's got a righty bat with, again, a little bit of thump in it, but disappointing year. 89 WRC plus, 295 WOBA against the 324 expected mark. Given the premium contact, you give him a long leash when he comes in at these kind of prices at first base, but there are also better other first basemen around the slate. Josh Young at 32-28, mix and match piece, 14 homers. A pretty weak slash line in terms of the on-base skills. The ISO leaves a lot to be desired. So do the WOBA marks, 91 WRC plus. I do believe there's talent in there, given the way that he makes contact with the ball. I'm not sure it ever comes together for him fully. Andrew McCutchen, rounding out the career, thought he was going to be finishing things in Pittsburgh, but finds his way to Texas. Cheap, still gets on base, 333 on base last season. Mix and match piece at the absolute best, maybe not even in the confirmed version of the lineup. Do we have this one? We don't. It's a 4-15 game. Evan Carter is a player who came up with some prospect pedigree, hasn't really delivered on it in up and down samples, 5 homers, 14 steals last year. Did get on at a 336 clip, which is interesting for a guy who's going to be running. 3,700, 2,900, definitely cheap. He's a lefty going up against a lefty here. I just don't like the spot, but something to think about over the next couple of games against different pitchers. Danny Jansen, Ezekiel Duran, mix and match pieces from the bottom. Duran fills a lot of positions very cheaply. Hit 0 home runs, stole 11 bases in 219 last year. Not exactly somebody to target. Danny Jansen, cheap catcher, power upside, 14 homers in 337 last year. Phils are the team you want in this game, though. 13.08 for Schwarbs in the home run model, one of the higher ranked players overall for the day. He does cost $5,900 on DraftKings, 43 on FanDuel. Is that the most expensive hitter on the slate? I think it might be. 4,900, nice little discount to Bryce Harper there. Harper comes in less than Trey Turner, less than Kyle Schwarber. He's a little bit less impactful for maybe what you would think of when you think Bryce Harper, but 27 home runs last year. Got on base at a 357 clip, 226 ISO. 368 xWOBA, creator runs 31% better than average, tremendous barrel and hard hit rates. I don't see a real reason to discount him like that. FanDuel's got him at 37. That's about where he was, but he's still cheaper than the other two on that side as well. Turner had a nice season, 304, 355, 457, 15 homers, 36 steals, a lot of stolen bases, a lot of run scoring ability, on base ability out of Trey Turner. Just a good run creator up at the top, doesn't really strike out. A lot of balls in play, draws an okay walk rate, but slightly below average. So just consistently putting the ball in play, 42.1% hard hit rate, comes away with a lot of high scoring fantasy days. Alec Boehm, if he slots into the cleanup spot especially, I think is an interesting hitter. I've referred to him a few times on this show over the past couple seasons as like a right-handed Vinny Pasquantino before the breakout. He's like the same age as Vinny, so we're a little bit behind that curve maybe. But a good hitter with an excellent hit tool, the ability to limit strikeout 16.3 last year, doesn't draw a ton of walks, 5.8%, just like Pasquantino, and puts good wood on the ball. 46.4% hard hit last year, 45 the year before. Just 6.2% barrel, though, 6.5 the year before. That was exactly Vinny's problem, where we're saying a little bit more launch angle in that. Gets you a little bit more barrel rate, maybe translates to a little bit more power. Just 11 home runs in an otherwise very strong season for Alec Bohm last year. 322 WOBA against a 324X, a 105 WRC plus. But this guy's 15 home runs the year before, 20 the year before that. So there is a little bit of additional known power lurking in there. I think there's maybe a little bit more beyond that in a lucky season, in a fortunate season. Some of that hard hit just translates, he gets under a few, and it just translates into a little bit of bonus for home runs. Worst case, you're getting a hitter who's excellent hit tool, excellent at getting on base, and a good run engine in the heart of a good lineup. Bryson Stott's a mix and match quality guy, 13 homers, 24 steals last year, on the nose at 100 WRC plus. He's fine. He's cheap. He's an inoffensive player from anywhere in this lineup, really. Adolis Garcia is another player I really like to have a bounce back season this year. Dipped to 19 home runs, 13 stolen bases in a lost season for Texas. If you remember, everybody on that Texas team was pretty bad last year. So I blame, a big part of that on Adolis's underperformance, obviously. This is a guy who was consistently hitting 30 home runs. Hit 39 back in 2023, dipped to 25 2 years ago, and then dipped to 19 last year, but with a regular job with a long, long leash for his defense in Philly. I like the upside for him to get that power back. Was still making very good contact, 11.3% barrel, 46.7% hard hit last season. So I don't think Adolis is dead by any stretch of the imagination. 7.22 lurking down the bottom of the lineup gives them an interesting bat to fill out stacks for just 38, for just 29 on FanDuel. Brandon Marsh is another guy who's always hit the ball hard. 11 home runs, excellent slash line, otherwise 280, 342, 443 last year, created a run 16% better than average. That is a good hitter for 3,000, for 2,500 to throw at any righty. Nathan Eovaldi is just good. I don't love targeting Nathan Eovaldi. JT Realmuto, we're coming back down the other side of the mountain, but he still made 550 plate appearances last year. It was okay. 94 WRC plus isn't getting it done. Obviously, we've lost a lot here. Just a dozen home runs. Still hit for a little bit of average. He's a playable catcher for DFS purposes. Still squares the ball up nicely in line with previous seasons. And then Justin Crawford, the hotshot rookie for the Phils, 2,400, 2,300. Somehow 300 more expensive than Kevin McGonigal, who's a more highly regarded prospect, whatever. Crawford slots into the outfield. A lot of talent here. JP last season. Oh, excuse me. I'm pulling up JP, not Justin. Justin Crawford last season. 506 AAA plate appearances, 7 home runs, 46 stolen bases, /334, 411, 452 created runs, 35% better than average, a 393 WOBA. Tremendous, tremendous prospect. We'll see how it translates to the show, but lurking at the bottom of the lineup for a cheap price. Ideally, you'd love him to crawl into like the 7 spot here, but probably going to come out of the gate in the 9 spot. Given the speed, maybe an interesting wraparound option, but we don't really know what the on-base skills are going to look like, especially game 1 against Eovaldi. I would say Christopher Sanchez, Phillies bats. Nathan Eovaldi, Rangers bats. Brings us to the last game of the day, gang. Couple minutes after noon. Adolis Garcia revenge. Oh, that's true. Yeah, I didn't even think in those terms. I just like Adolis Garcia. Another player on the Dynasty team. Need him to come through this year. Not just hoping he does, not just thinking he will. Need him to. Interesting matchup here to end the slate. I mentioned it off the top. It's another spot. 4-2-1 feels a little aggressive in that implied Vegas total for the Rays. For one, they're not that good. Yeah, you've got Junior in that lineup. He's tremendous. I like Jonathan Aranda and his ability to put good wood on the ball. I like Yandy Diaz. His ability to get on base is elite. But other than that, after those three, in this projected version anyway, Ben Williamson, Johnny DeLuca, Nick Fortes, Carson Williams, Cedric Mullins. I like Cedric Mullins for counting stats for fantasy, but hitting down lineup. There's not a lot to fear here. Matthew Liberatore, not a big-time pitcher. Worked to a 4.21 ERA, a 4.31 xFIP, similar Sierra last year. Had a 1.31 whip, which was a little problematic. Struck out just 18.8 over 29 starts, 151 and 2/3. But a lefty who maybe is just finding it. A lot of stories about him finding it in terms of The pitch mix, tunneling a little bit better, just finding that release point a little bit more consistently. You can see he had actually tremendous breaking stuff last year, but when it was well below par across the rest of the arsenal. The fastball is never going to be elite, but if you can find enough to work those breaking pitches off the fastball, we can find more strikeout. And he was doing that in a big way in spring. Again, I do not put much stock in spring numbers, but in his spring starts, I believe he finished the spring over a 30% strikeout rate in a handful of starts. Again, totally meaningless. Guys are going to be bagging groceries in a couple of weeks. Yeah, 4 starts, 33.9% strikeout, 3.6% walk, a 30.4 K-minus BB. By far the best number that he's ever put up for strikeouts at any stop in the minors for a full season or any spring training camp. So it's a major outlier. But it comes alongside off-season discussion about improvement. It's only 26 in a couple of months. So just coming into his prime. I'm not necessarily calling for a major crazy breakout, but I think he beats last year's numbers. I think he's an interesting pitcher. He's crazy cheap at $6,000, $7,300 today on both sites. I definitely plan on using him against this lineup. 24.5% strikeout rate last season with some skewed high numbers in there. I think that's an interesting spot. It's just a bad hitting environment in the 90-degree range in St. Louis today. But call me crazy. Liberators at least on the board, and I think he suppresses the Rays a little bit more than expectations here. Drew Rasmussen on the other side going up against a very young Cardinals lineup without a lot of thread in it. Could be interesting. 67-74. We talked about his overall lack of depth, 150 innings and 31 starts last season. You're probably looking at just a booked 5 innings. That's what he's projected for here. Or actually, I might have cut that under 5. I think I did. But, not projected for a lot of depth. Not going to find you a quality start, most likely. Maybe qualifies for a win if they get him there. But a good pitcher, 21.7% strikeouts last year. Walk were up a little bit higher than you'd want, just a 15.5% K-minus BB. Pitched to a 2.76 ERA, but a run higher in the xFIP is probably the real number. Didn't give up a ton for home run, but gave up a fair amount of premium contact in terms of the exit velocity, the hard hit rate. Just got saved a little bit by keeping the ball down somewhat. Line drive results rather than extreme fly ball trajectory. For the money, not a bad option at 67-74, though, going up against this lineup. Going through the Rays again real quick. As mentioned, top 3 hitters, excellent. Jandy, 25 homers in another 300, 366, 482 season career, runs 35% better than average. Aranda, 14 homers, kind of disappointing given the 12.8% barrel, 54.1% hard hit over 422 plate appearances. You would expect that to translate to more home runs. I like his upside to beat that home run total this year. I think he gets on base. He got on at a 393 clip last year. I don't know that necessarily continues. Fair amount of BABIP baked into that, but that comes with hitting the ball so hard. So I think that's a good bat. Junior Caminero, absolutely elite. 45 home runs and 653 plate appearances in his first full season. He's, 20, 21? Just ridiculous numbers for such a young player. 14% barrel, 51.4% hard hit. Earned every dime of that 5,800. Maybe a little cheap, under 4,000 on FanDuel. Ben Williamson, do we have this confirmed lineup? No. Still a projected. Ben Williamson, cheap. Mix and match quality, 1 home run, 5 steals, and 295 chances last year. No thanks. Johnny DeLuca, if he's in the lineup, 55 plate appearances, was somewhat relevant in that small sample last year, but not much of a bat, not much of a barrel or hard hit rate over the last couple of seasons. Not much walk either. Nick Fortes, Carson Williams. I mentioned Cedric Mullins. Mullins may be a little bit interesting. 17 homers, 22 steals. I don't think we're going 30-30 again. But the upper teens, mid-20s home run stolen base totals. He just doesn't hit for average, doesn't get on base consistently, only a 94 WRC plus last season. There are certainly nits you can pick, but in terms of just filling out counting stats for fantasy, still an okay player for the money that they're asking at 32.27. And then Ryan Velotte at the bottom, dead min price on both sites, only 15 plate appearances last year. Velotte is just turned 27. not exactly a prospect. Has made a grand total of 71 plate appearances in the show so far, slashing 141, 200 at 188 for his career with a WRC plus of 9. Did hit 17 homers and stole 11 bases with a decent slash line, 135 WRC plus in the minors last year. That's playing as a 26-year-old, mostly a AAA in 461 plate appearances, though. Temper expectations if you're going in that direction with Ryan Velotti. But he is very, very cheap at the dead min on both sites. First base eligibility on FanDuel. J.J. Weatherholt, another top prospect, top of the Cardinals lineup here. Cards are going with the youth movement. They're on the record as saying, do not expect us to win games this year, but expect to see a lot of development out of the kids. And that's what we're going to get. 17 homers, 23 steals for Weatherholt in 496 plate appearances. Split between mostly AA, AAA last season. 22 years old, coming up as one of the top prospects, both organizationally and a top 50 overall prospect. So interesting bat, just 2,500 in the middle infield on FanDuel, 3,000 shortstop on DraftKings. Definitely playable if you're choosing to attack Drew Rasmussen here. Ivan Herrera, full-time catcher, 4,000, 3,200 across sites, has outfield eligibility still on FanDuel. 19 home runs, excellent slash line, and a breakout campaign last year after a long time being a top-ranked catcher prospect, but just being blocked at the position forever. 137 WRC plus. Kid can rake. That's one of the better bats in this lineup. Alec Burleson, 37, 29, 18 homers. Solid slash line through the season, 124 WRC plus. One of only 2 players, along with Herrera, above the average for WRC plus last season, which is not a good sign. Mason Wynn, mix and match quality shortstop. 9 home runs, 9 steals. Pretty bad season, 91 WRC plus last year. Nolan Gorman, all the power in the world, but maddeningly inconsistent. Just 14 homers, 402 plate appearances, sub 300 WOBA and ex-WOBA last year, 88 WRC plus. Needs to get it back. Needs to get back to these days of a 16% barrel rate. That was cut nearly in half last season. There's your problem. Jordan Walker. If you've ever been here before, you know what I'm going to say right now. Jordan Walker is better than those numbers from last year. Jordan Walker is way better than his reputation. He needs to find it. He needs to prove it. This is the make or break season probably. They haven't given him a fair shake. We've talked about it a million times on this show. Back in 23, 465 rookie plate appearances like a 20-year-old, coming off of being one of the, like a top 5 prospect in all of baseball with massive power projections. Came up and all he did was hit 16 home runs in 465 plate appearances, post a 116 WRC plus, slash 276, 342, 445. That's a totally effective, if not, standout superstar making rookie season. Mess with his playing time, sent him up, sent him down a couple times during the season in 24. He didn't deliver anything. 201, 253, 366 with a 72 WRC plus while he was here, but didn't get a good shake. Was decent in the minors that season. Came back for a more complete season, but still not a full opportunity last year with sub 400 plate appearances. Did not deliver again. 6 homers, 10 stolen bases. There is a killer in that bat. I refuse to believe otherwise. Even in that bad season last year, 10.9% barrel, 50% hard hit. There's a player here. I know it. It's not because of his WOBA or his ex-WOBA. 260 WOBA under a 278 ex-WOBA isn't helping my case. We cut a little bit off strikeout. We find a little bit of just more consistently just putting bat on ball because he's already making good contact when he makes contact. It's just the frequency of that contact, the reps. Spent a lot of time at Driveline in the offseason, translated to a terrible spring, but he did hit his lone spring home run on the last day of spring training. Maybe signs of life. Very cheap, 2,500 if I'm stacking cards. He's in my lineup. Nathan Church is here because Lars Nootbaar is not mix and match quality player. Pedro Pajes is an okay catcher, hit 11 home runs in 389 chances, but you're taking Herrera over him every time. And then Victor Scott at the bottom of the lineup, last man of the day. Steals bases, 34 steals last year. Didn't really get on, 305 on base, 76 WRC plus. Not exactly tearing it up from a DFS perspective. That is your cards lineup up and down. I would say this game goes for me, Liberatore, Rasmussen, Rays, Cards. I want the pitching more than I want the hitting in this one. If I'm going Rays, it's those 3 guys that are the priority. Those 3 hitters are probably the priority on either side. But again, I do a little sneaky Jordan Walker there. 12-14. Got to get out of here. Got to get some lineups built. Got to get some projections updated. Chop Jane's Caminero every day. I have a problem. But having to play him, having to watch him, Rays fan? Rays back in their regular home park, by the way. Not playing this year in Steinbrenner Field. The Athletics still playing in Sutter. So something to watch there. Obviously, this is not a Tampa Bay home game, though, so that doesn't matter. I think that's about it, though, gang. Let me get out of here. Let me get some of those projections updated with the confirmed lineups. They'll be up on the site. Give me 5 minutes. We'll have that done. Home run pick of the day was O'Neal Cruz. If you missed it earlier, a lot of love for this pitching slate. A lot to work with today. We will be back tomorrow. I haven't even looked at what time the day starts. If it's early like today, we'll be early. If it's late, if it's a night slate, we'll be in the afternoon. Keep an eye out on YouTube there. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that before. Subscribe over at the website, promo code OD26, OD26. Get you a $15 first month on a monthly, a $4 first week on a weekly plan. You get access to all of these projections. You get access to the home run picks, stacks board, power index, et cetera, the game-by-game snapshots. You also get NBA and NHL DFS projections every single day of the week. So go check that out. A lot of bang for your buck, guys. Even on regular pricing, that is under $1 a day for all of the content on the website. Can't beat it. Go check it out. Thank you guys. A lot of people saying thanks in the chat. I appreciate the hell out of you guys coming back after that long hiatus that I took. Love you guys. Appreciate you. We'll be doing this all year long. Looking forward to it. Good luck out there today. Somebody go win something. We'll see you.